The hero of our story is a vampire who met a humiliating end, mocked in his final moments. However, he was sent back in time to the past. Armed with his knowledge of the future, he decides to gain power and rewrite his destiny. How will he achieve this, and what challenges lie in his path? That is what we will discover in today's story. In the middle of a raging thunderstorm, the Holy Knight appears, taunting his vampire opponent who has been hiding for half a year, sneeringly asking if he enjoyed his time in hiding. The knight confronts his enemy, accusing him of being a filthy monster who caused many deaths and admitting that his manipulation of the Holy Knights was a clever trick. The knight firmly declares that this monster's role ends here, and that God will not forgive his sins from this moment on. The knight draws his sword, commanding him to feel proud because he will die at the hands of the vampire slayer. The vampire falls to the ground bleeding while the knight scolds him, asserting that his corrupt and distorted form is the definitive proof of his sins, his deception of the church, and his rejection of its judgment. With a hysterical laugh, the knight reveals a shocking truth that not catching him all this time was intentional. He joined the hunt late and let the vampire wreak havoc and escape on purpose. The reason behind this was his desire to take his time, to make the elimination of a vampire who reappeared after a long absence look elegant and exciting, and to serve as a warning to non-believers. At that moment, staring at his executioner's sword, the vampire realizes that this world is governed by the laws of survival of the fittest regardless of his will. Power is the only standard that determines fate in this conflict. The sword slices through the body of the vampire who knew this truth and had chosen to flee because of it. In his final moments with pain wringing his body, he wonders if that idea of escaping was completely wrong. The knight continues to insult him, considering his mere existence a mockery of the church and a desecration of its honor. As life fades from his eyes, the vampire reaches his hand toward the sky with a heart full of regret, wishing for just one more chance, and his body falls lifeless amidst the laughter of the victorious knight. Suddenly, the vampire wakes up gasping heavily inside a tent. His chest heaves with panic. He feels his neck and limbs in astonishment, finding them completely intact and not cut as they were in the moment of his death. He looks at his bandaged hands, unable to believe he survived, telling himself he should be dead. He looks around to realize this isn't a dream. He is sitting in the tent he lived in before the Holy Knights began hunting him. He notices the marks carved into the wood indicating the date, discovering that he has traveled back in time to 6 months ago, specifically before the hunting squad started chasing him. He stands stunned in the middle of the tent, wondering if he has truly returned to the past. He clenches his fist tightly, realizing that what is happening is a real second chance that must not be wasted. The scene shifts to a remote forest near the village of Broadwind where humans do not tread. There, Eugene lived hiding from people's eyes, a weak vampire holding his breath and trying to survive day by day. He didn't crave human blood, but his instinct overcame him once long ago, and that was the beginning of his end as mercenaries poured in the next day, followed by holy knights 5 days later to comb the village. They chased him for a month, then a year, and eventually found him no matter how hard he tried to hide. He lived 12 years of fear, feeding on animal blood in the forest. He doesn't know how he returned to the past, but he firmly decides not to repeat the same mistakes. Eugene runs, determined that even if he dies, he won't die hiding in weakness. He must become strong enough to stop them from killing him even if they find him. Under the green moonlight, he decides to change his survival strategy and start using vampire magic. Eugene explains the fundamental rule of vampires, their ability to absorb power by drinking blood. The stronger the blood's owner, the greater the power gained. Suddenly, expression changes as he senses an imminent danger approaching him in that dark forest. The water's surface breaks to reveal the Forest Lord, a massive monster with terrifying jaws rushing toward Eugene. Eugene stares at the monster in shock for a moment, then moves quickly to dodge the attack, bitterly realizing that his current weak body allows him only to evade with great difficulty. He decides he only needs to inflict a minor wound on the monster's body, as that will be enough for him to absorb its blood and gain power. Eugene leaps into the air attacking, abandoning his old style of survival which relied on hiding his presence. He realizes his previous method failed, so there is no need to hesitate now. He strikes with his sword with all his might, driven by a desperate desire to gain power, but the shock comes when his sword bounces off broken against the hardness of the monster's skin, which responds with a crushing tail strike. Eugene's body flies through the air to crash into the water with force, blood bleeding from him. As the monster attacks again, Eugene wonders if he underestimated the power of this wanderer. Wanderers are creatures that roam the wild and are not limited to demonic zones, and some of them possess magic stones even in mana-free places, and these stones are more precious than gems. Eugene realizes that finding a magic stone could tip the scales in his favor, but the difference in power between him and the monster is too vast. Eugene takes another crushing hit, admitting inwardly that he underestimated the opportunity given to him. He is certain this forest lord can end his life before he can even make a single scratch. As the monster clamps its jaws around him, Eugene thinks that perhaps he mistakenly believed another chance might come if he failed this time, but he denies that immediately, asserting he isn't that arrogant. As the monster swallows him, Eugene recalls his bitter memories where he lived his previous life crawling, holding his breath, struggling only to survive. His eyes glow crimson red, and he decides this time to choose to fight to live. Radiant magic symbols appear on his body, and he screams internally, motivating himself to fight and win. His body transforms, and his muscles swell, certain that if he doesn't win now, no next chance will be granted. From inside the monster's belly, Eugene tears at its guts, clinging to the principle that there is no next after defeat, so he must seize victory with his own hands. He attacks the monster's magic stone. The monster's body explodes, scattering blood, and Eugene emerges, confirming the truth that survival has always belonged to those who stand on the blood of others. Amidst the scattered remains of the monster, Eugene remembers the promise he made to himself that if given a second chance, he would not run away again but would fight. Eugene stands under the moonlight in his new powerful form, his long hair fluttering, declaring his resolve to seize blood and victory. In the silence of the night, he stands alone after the battle, noting that he didn't just absorb the forest lord's blood, but absorbed its magic stone as well, granting him immense energy beyond all expectations. Eugene contemplates the floating corpse of the forest lord, noticing that the mana crystal it left behind differs in size and color from the usual. He realizes that the ability gained from this crystal gives him the potential to turn his skin into hard black scales. He deduces that thanks to these scales, he might be able to move freely during the day if he can completely block sunlight from his body. Eugene recalls his memories. He knew about the forest lord through mercenaries. The swamps weren't wide initially, but seasonal floods expanded them, causing the monster to appear and attack humans. In the midst of that chaos, Eugene managed to drink a dose of the injured monster's blood and escape after killing some mercenaries, realizing the potency of that blood, and decided to return to absorb it fully. Despite his newfound power, Eugene knows it is still insufficient to face the holy knight Young Dirt, so he must avoid losing battles until he is sure of his victory. He realizes the knight possesses exceptional skill in tracking monsters and the undead anywhere, making hiding useless, compelling him to gather strength for confrontation instead of flight. With sunrise approaching, Eugene decides to return before dawn, postponing the test of the crystal's ability. Suddenly, silence is broken by a sarcastic voice mocking the fake lord who took over the territory and turned the beautiful lake into a swamp, announcing his death at last. The voice expresses gratitude to Eugene for killing that fake who died pathetically while the water moves strangely around him. However, the mysterious entity demands Eugene pay the price for his sin of polluting the land with blood carelessly. A water fairy appears introducing herself as Miriam, the guardian of the lake, declaring this area her private territory. She threatens Eugene with the wrath of the forest and the land, threatening to tear him apart and curse him. Eugene ignores her dramatic threats and coldly asks for her identity, making her realize he didn't hear her grand speech because spirit sensing is a rare skill few possess. Miriam is stunned and confused when he repeats his question seriously. She confirms he can see and hear her and shyly asks if he heard her calling him a bald vampire. She reintroduces herself formally as a water spirit named Marion, who was the mistress of the place before the crocodile enslaved her 15 years ago. She tries to embellish the truth by describing herself as a strategic partner who purified the water to attract food for the monster, but ultimately sincerely thanks Eugene for freeing her and cleansing the place. Marion praises Eugene's intelligence, believing the bald old man form she saw earlier was just a precise disguise to lower the monster's defenses, while Eugene notices one of the tattoos on his body has vanished. Miriam asks admiringly about the meaning of those tattoos, whether they are warrior symbols or names of victims, to which he answers he doesn't know. They were always there. He explains he was born a vampire, and the last thing he remembers of his origin is the presence of 10 tattoos on his body. He had no memories of his early days and was content living a quiet life without thinking about himself. Eugene wonders if the tattoos are marks or seals that unlock over time, then decides to leave, ordering Miriam to protect the forest, which shocks her due to his quick departure after finding someone to talk to. She follows him complaining about boredom and the scarcity of those who see spirits, trying to convince him to stay to purify the swamp, which will take a long time. She offers him clean water as a gift for a pale handsome man claiming water fairy water tastes amazing. She spits water from her mouth and asks him to taste it, but Eugene looks at her with disgust and orders her to back off. Miriam pursues him persistently, offering to purify water or make more in strange and gross ways, calling him Mr. Nightwalker to stop. Several days later, night falls on the village of Broadwind. Panic ensues when a villager rushes to call the chief, announcing the appearance of the red-eyed monster. The villagers gather in fear and tension only to discover that what they thought was an attack was nothing but a huge pile of various hunted game left for them, leaving them wondering in amazement at the abundant amount of meat and if they can really take it all. The villagers wonder in confusion what is going on in the mind of that red-eyed monster, as he usually brings them hunted animals once every 2 weeks, but it isn't time for this visit yet. This monster who lives at the foot of the mountain far from the village has remained there for the past 10 years without posing any significant threat to the residents. Although the village chief cannot read the creature's mind, he nervously agrees when Eugene asked permission to enter the village for a moment. When he first appeared a decade ago, terror struck everyone's hearts. But over time, given his commitment to paying taxes in the form of dead animals, a strange relationship developed where everyone ignored him and left him alone. The chief stammers a welcome to the guest he hasn't seen in a long time, and everyone is surprised when Eugene reveals his face. With a calm smile, he tells them that after long isolation, he is fully recovered from his illness and came today specifically to share this good news. Eugene expresses gratitude for the great help he received from the village, showing a sincere desire to return the favor. As the villagers look on in astonishment, he asks them not to hesitate to call him anytime they need him if any misfortune befalls them. He bids them farewell with a charming smile, emphasizing his offer to help, then leaves amidst an aura of light that leaves everyone in a state of shock and fascination. The villagers begin to wonder if that monster who lived in the forest is actually a half-elf or an exiled noble, as he always wore a mask, and they never imagined he possessed such handsomeness. On the way back, Miriam the fairy asks Eugene in surprise why he gave all those spoils to the villagers and what he is planning. Eugene answers while walking in the forest that while vampires may be associated with blood and massacres, in the human world, revealing one's face is an important proof of goodwill. Miriam objects, asking if he plans to make friends with them instead of eating them, especially since he previously stated his intention to leave within days, making getting involved with them pointless. Eugene stops for a moment to admit to himself that he was wrong to think nothing tied him to this place, and that he cannot stand by as a spectator to what will happen soon. Miriam is shocked when Eugene tells her a terrifying prophecy. Mercenaries will soon raid the village and exterminate all its inhabitants. The goal of this attack is to kidnap a specific boy and deliver him to the region's lord, Sir Terwin. To destroy evidence and prevent witnesses, they will kill all the villagers, which Eugene realizes will inevitably lead to the future where holy knights flood his location, so he must prevent this disaster. Miriam doubts that mercenaries would kill everyone, while Eugene remains mysterious to her. Miriam thinks to herself that she cannot understand what Eugene is thinking even though she spent several days with him. Eugene tells her she will soon verify if he is lying to her or not. Eugene decides his first step must be to gain the villagers' trust to appear harmless to them, which puzzles the fairy regarding the link between gaining trust and the mercenaries' attack. Miriam bumps into Eugene's back as he stops suddenly, asking him in pain why he stops so abruptly. Eugene notices a group of armed men approaching while one of them asks about the identity of this person standing in their way. The mercenaries think he is just a villager because of his simple clothes, which confuses their plan to ambush the village. One of them notices Eugene's excessive handsomeness for a man, but they decide to get rid of him quickly because he is alone and carries no proper weapon and for fear he might scream and expose them. Without warning, one mercenary rushes from behind wielding a huge axe to kill him. While Miriam screams warning Eugene, who prepares to use his power to counter the treacherous attack. In the blink of an eye, a red eye glints in the darkness, and Eugene moves with lightning speed, delivering a slashing blow that spills blood, beginning the execution of the plan he resolved upon. In those moments, Eugene recalls his conversation with the fairy, Miriam, where he emphasized the necessity of gaining the villagers' trust at any cost. So as not to arouse suspicion around him, Marion is surprised when Eugene manages to eliminate the opponent with a single blow. Eugene stands with blood covering his face and clothes, declaring his death sentence upon all these mercenaries, confirming he will leave none of them alive. Panic strikes the mercenaries' hearts upon seeing his supernatural abilities, and one screams, warning the rest that this person is not human but a vampire. One attempts to regain control of the situation, shouting at them not to be afraid, reasoning that being a vampire is good. If they hand him to the church alive, they will get a huge reward, then rushes to attack with his giant sword. But shock covers his face when Eugene blocks the sword blade with his bare hand, gripping it with supernatural strength. With a swift move, Eugene bypasses defenses and deals a bloody blow to his opponent. The mercenaries realize they are not facing an ordinary vampire, so they decide to settle for getting his corpse at least. Attacks rain down on him from all sides, and one covets cutting off his head. However, Eugene moves among them like a ghost, tearing their bodies apart one by one, prompting one to describe him as a demon, while another warns his comrades against rushing him recklessly. A huge bald mercenary advances carrying a spiked mace threatening to crush Eugene. Eugene blocks the heavy blow with his hand, stunning the mercenary for stopping his attack. Eugene notices the sun has begun to set, granting him absolute advantage. He breaks his opponent's weapon and ends his life with a crushing blow, declaring that the night is his own time. Eugene stands amid scattered corpses, thinking this is the most suitable time to hide the traces of blood. The remaining courage of the mercenaries collapses, and they scream in terror, calling for a group attack on him as a monster that cannot be faced individually. Shortly after, the villagers arrive carrying torches led by the village chief with looks of shock on their faces. The chief asks in amazement, looking at the torn bodies, how something like this could happen. One villager vomits from the horror of the scene, while the chief asks Eugene suspiciously if he did all this with such brutality. Eugene denies the matter coldly, claiming he found the scene as is while returning from checking his traps in the forest. Eugene points to the bodies, explaining that the mercenaries were ambushed on their way to raid the village of Broadwyn, then highlights with his hand the real culprits from his point of view. The villagers gasp upon seeing corpses of black wolves lying among the dead. Eugene weaves his lie skillfully, claiming the wolves were in large numbers and devouring the bodies when he arrived. So he killed some while the rest fled and might be watching them now, leaving the chief amazed at his ability to kill these known dangerous beasts alone. One villager examines the bodies to confirm to the chief the presence of clear wolf claw marks on them, which initially exonerates Eugene. Another villager confirms the matter, noting that all the dead were attacked by wolves. The chief feels ashamed and apologizes to Eugene for doubting him, and Eugene accepts the apology graciously. Eugene asks about the fate of the bodies because he couldn't leave them like that, so the chief decides to bury them in the village while Marion whispers, mocking Eugene who lies in every word he speaks. In reality, wolves were not the perpetrators. They appeared after Eugene finished off the mercenaries, so he killed the wolves too. Then he used the jaw of a dead wolf to intentionally inflict wounds and bite marks on the mercenaries' corpses to weave his story and hide the truth of his massacre. Marion wonders to herself why Eugene is so concerned about his image before the villagers. While hiding his crimes is good, he could have simply left them to their suspicions, but he chose to stay and maintain his reputation. The fairy Marion notices that he has a plan brewing while he approaches the village chief with a serious expression. Eugene tells the chief that he searched the bodies for any belongings to return to the families of the dead, but he found a sealed letter and asked him to read it. The chief examines the letter with trembling hands, immediately recognizing the seal on it, confirming it is the seal of Lord Terwin, the ruler of the region. The chief's eyes widen in shock as he reads the content of the letter, unable to believe what his eyes are seeing, asking in a hoarse voice if this is true. Suddenly, the chief turns toward the villagers, shouting and looking for a boy named Vilid, and someone answers that the boy is inside the village. Meanwhile, Vilid appears simply eating his food inside one of the houses, while the letter reveals a dangerous secret that this boy might be the illegitimate son of Lord Terwin. The village chief then realizes that these mercenaries didn't come for random looting, but were on a specific mission to target that boy, leaving him stunned to discover that a noble had been living among them all this time. The scene returns to the battlefield a short while ago, where the mercenary captain stands astounded by the immense power with which Eugene is annihilating his men. Eugene moves with lightning speed among the mercenaries, tearing their bodies apart with his hand without leaving them a chance to react. The mercenaries realize that attempting to flee means certain death, so one of them screams, motivating the rest to fight instead of hesitating. They try to gather their courage, convincing themselves that no matter how much of a monster he is, he only has 2 arms and 2 legs, and they rush to attack him all at once. The mercenary captain finds himself unable even to run due to his injury and terror, cursing his bad luck that revealed this monster to him at this specific time. He advances toward Eugene with steady steps from behind, but Eugene delivers a devastating kick that crushes his armor and knocks him to the ground. The captain's body flies to hit a massive tree trunk with force, and he coughs blood from the severity of the pain. The captain crawls on the ground amidst the bodies of his men, begging Eugene to stop killing. The captain asks in a voice filled with terror if Eugene had been waiting for them from the start and why he targeted them specifically. He tries to justify their position, claiming they were only trying to do their job. Eugene interrupts him with a terrifying look and glowing eyes, demanding to know the nature of this work and clearly declaring that this village belongs to him. The captain apologizes in panic, assuring him that he didn't know the village belonged to him and that they didn't come to hunt vampires or his kind. The captain reveals the truth, explaining that the illegitimate son of the Terwin family is hiding in that village, and that people thought he was missing while he was concealing his identity there, and their mission was only to search for him. Eugene accuses the captain of lying skillfully, pointing out that there is no reason to bring such a large number of mercenaries for a mere simple search mission. Eugene presses him with the question of whether they plan to wipe out the entire village, to which the captain replies with a disturbed denial, then admits that Eugene isn't entirely wrong in his deduction. The captain confesses that they weren't hired by the patriarch of the Terwin family himself, but the clients were Kamara Terwin and Verthal Terwin. Eugene deduces that it involves political struggles between nobles, while the captain explains that their large number was just a precautionary measure in case of any emergency during the kidnapping of the illegitimate son asking for forgiveness. The name Verthal Terwin falls on Eugene's ears like a thunderbolt, for he knows this name well. He is the leader of the vampire hunter squad, and the knight who chased him previously alongside the holy knight, Zhang Dirt. Eugene analyzed the situation quickly, realizing that Verthal, as a knight, wouldn't have ordered mercenaries to commit a public massacre, but the decision to exterminate the village came from the mercenaries themselves to cover their tracks. Eugene now realizes the real reason the holy knights found him in his past life. It wasn't due to a mistake of his, but because the disappearance of an entire village prompted a large-scale search campaign that led them to him. The captain continues his pleas, claiming he thought it was a good opportunity to make money, and that he would never have done it had he known of Eugene's presence there. Eugene orders the mercenary captain to leave, coldly warning him about the wolves on his way back, which surprised the captain, who didn't expect to escape with his life. As the captain stammers words of thanks and gratitude for this unexpected mercy, thinking Eugene has spared him, Eugene sends his head flying with a swift lightning strike, ending his life in a single moment. The fairy Marion is stunned by his killing of the man so simply, but Eugene justifies his deed by stating that the mercenary knew his reality as a vampire, and he cannot allow him to live and spread this secret. He adds coldly that the wolves surrounding them are drooling with hunger, and it is time to feed them. Eugene returns to the villagers to finish weaving his lie, telling the chief that the dead mercenaries were merely guards who came to escort the boy, Vilid, to the castle, which shocks the villagers. The villagers remember that Vilid came to their village 8 years ago and lost his mother last year, and terror strikes their hearts at the thought that the guards assigned to protect him were all killed. Eugene intervenes, offering his services, confirming he can accompany the boy and protect him all the way to the city, utilizing his long experience living in the forest and avoiding monsters. The chief hesitates to accept the offer, noting that they cannot ask such a thing of a stranger they used to fear. Eugene smiles confidently, declaring that a knight never refuses an opportunity to offer help, which makes Miriam mock his stiff face and ability to lie fluently in secret. Confusion spreads across the faces of the villagers, and Miriam, upon hearing the word knight, Miriam wonders in astonishment what he means. Boldly, Eugene formally introduces himself as Jan Eugene of the noble Eugene family, apologizing for his delay in introducing himself, while Miriam whispers in disbelief at his audacity to impersonate nobility. The power dynamics in the village flip immediately as villagers scold one another for their previous rudeness to Sir Eugene, who turned out to be a noble and not a monster. Miriam whispers to Eugene that his lie has crossed the line, but he reassures her with a sly smile, explaining that these simple villagers have never seen a noble in their lives, so deceiving them will be easy. Eugene realizes that even if he feigns nobility, no one here possesses the ability to distinguish the truth. The villagers gather around him eagerly, inventing justifications for his long isolation in the forest, wondering if it was part of harsh night training or to recover from battle wounds. Eugene plays along with their conversation, confirming he cut ties with people due to special circumstances, so they become convinced that his hunting skills stemmed from his training as a knight. The chief apologizes sorrowfully for the village's poverty and their inability to reward him as befits his status, but Eugene shows humility, asking only to stay the night to rest. The chief welcomes him with great warmth, considering hosting a knight in his humble home a great honor. The next morning, Eugene looks out from the window of the wooden house in the middle of the forest. He looks at his hand, invoking the skin reinforcement ability he acquired from the forest lord. He notices his skin turning into hard black scales, realizing that covering his body with these scales will block sunlight from him to a great extent. Eugene decides to use this ability to facilitate his journey during the day and reduce trouble. Murian appears to mock him again, describing him as an ignorant vampire, claiming knighthood when he can't even read. Eugene ignores her mockery, explaining that he will leave this place soon anyway, and asks her to speak in a flowery manner that serves his current goal. Miriam is amazed by his sudden transformation from isolation to making friends and accepting quests. The villagers come to inform him of their readiness to leave, so Eugene points to them proudly to Miriam, explaining how he gained a prestigious social status overnight. He explains his philosophy to her that humans trust authority and status more than flowery words. If you put status first, you can reduce 100 lies to just 10 and have them believe. As Eugene covers his face with the mask, he realizes deep down that this trick worked on them because it is a remote and simple village, but real nobles won't believe such a fabricated lie so easily. Eugene decides to turn his lies into reality, relying on the trust he has built with his good deeds so far. The village chief reads an explanatory statement written by Eugene to present to the boy, Vilid, while Eugene realizes inwardly that wrapping the lie with real abilities is the way to make everyone believe him. Vilid introduces himself respectfully, expressing his anticipation of Sir Eugene's guidance during their journey. Eugene realizes that to turn all these lies into solid facts, he desperately needs high social status, so he reintroduces himself to the boy as Jan Eugene of the Eugene family. The two set off on their journey. Eugene determined to use the boy to become a real noble through him. They reach the outskirts of Bram's village as the wooden sign indicates, and Eugene notes the accuracy of the information. Eugene asks the boy if he knows how to read, and Vilid answers yes, explaining that his late mother taught him the letters. The boy adds that despite his mother's humble status, she learned to read and write from someone she loved, but he never imagined that person was Sir Terwin, and Miriam finds it a perfect opportunity for Eugene to ask the boy to teach him letters, claiming things are going in his favor. Vilid is stunned and confused by the request of a knight who cannot read or write, so Eugene tries to salvage the situation quickly. Eugene invents a dramatic story, claiming the knight title is just a facade and his family had actually fallen, so he lived his life relying on the sword alone, not the pen, to survive. Vilid believes the story with emotion, while Eugene cements his own philosophy to make them doubt, then believe. Once you gain someone's trust, that trust becomes a thick shield covering any lie. The fairy Marian mocks Eugene's flawless acting, warning him that too many lies might raise suspicions eventually. But Villiad's looks full of trust confirm he swallowed the bait and believed Eugene completely without an atom of doubt. The boy apologizes sincerely to Eugene for his previous suspicions, admitting he was wary of him because the villagers described him as a monster instead of a noble. He blames himself for the prejudice, believing his judgment was clouded by those rumors. Vilid decides to judge only by what his eyes see instead of rumors, making excuses for Eugene that perhaps he neglected studying due to his warrior background. Vilid offers to teach him secretly whenever the chance arises so as not to cause him embarrassment in front of others. As the boy asks to know more about Eugene's past, a treacherous arrow suddenly flies past his face. Vilid screams in terror and falls to the ground while Eugene notices the attack coldly. Bandits appear from among the trees, and one mocks his colleague for failing to draw the bow correctly and hit the target. Villiad trembles in horror looking at them, wondering if they are thieves. The thieves underestimate their opponents based on their appearance, believing the matter will end quickly and easily. They order Eugene and the boy to put down the luggage and empty their pockets immediately, threatening them with death if they don't hurry. But Eugene draws his sword in the blink of an eye, ready for confrontation. He moves with supernatural speed, closing the distance between them, and sends the leader's head flying into the air, while Villiad watches the scene in total amazement. One of the thieves screams, calling for his leader after Eugene surprises them with a sudden bloody attack. Eugene moves lightly and gracefully just as he wanted, enjoying his ability to fight. One rushes carrying an axe while screaming insults at him, so Eugene moves with lightning speed and separates his head from his body. Eugene continues slaughtering his enemies with a series of cutting strikes as blood scatters around him. One thief screams for help seeing his comrades falling, but Eugene moves with lightning speed and pierces his chest. Eugene wonders coldly as he slaughters them why humans try to kill and rob those weaker than them. While stabbing the neck of one, he wonders if the appearance of weakness justifies torture. As the thief breathes his last, Eugene asks the boy Vilid if learning to read will help him understand this cruel human nature. Vilid watches the scene with eyes wide with horror, remembering his promise to judge with what his eyes see. Eugene tells him coldly that he is free to believe what he wishes, but he promises him that not a single drop of blood will touch him. The two finally arrive at the bustling city market where vendors call out their goods. Eugene notices an argument between a merchant and a customer about prices and the quality of goods. Miriam flies happily through the crowd, while the boy warns Eugene of the need to be careful when shopping here. Vilid explains that merchants exploit strangers with exorbitant prices, and the village chief was always deceived. They watch a quarrel where a customer demands his money back because the neighboring shop sells at half the price. Eugene realizes he needs money first before worrying about caution. Eugene asks Vili to wait a moment and enters a shop. He offers to sell skins to the merchant, asking him to set a price for them. The merchant is surprised to see a large quantity of rare black wolf skins. The merchant looks at Eugene's shabby clothes, deducing he is not a trader but just a wanderer. The merchant smiles maliciously, believing Eugene is an easy catch to deceive. He offers him a cheap price of 18 silver pieces, claiming the skins are damaged. Eugene stares at the merchant with a glowing red eye, which terrifies the man. The merchant stammers, saying wolfskins are available in limited quantity and are rare goods, so he will raise the price a little. Eugene approaches him with a silent threat. The merchant turns his head in fear of his gaze, asking him internally to express his dissatisfaction with words, not scary looks. The merchant laughs nervously, telling Eugene he will give him a good price since it's his first time here, raising the price to 23 pieces. Eugene hums in a low voice, so the merchant thinks he is still unsatisfied. The merchant raises the price again to 25 pieces. The merchant breaks down and raises the price to 27, then to 28 pieces amidst Viliad's amazement. Eugene presses with a louder voice, so the merchant asks in terror how much this monster wants. Finally, the deal settles on 30 silver pieces, which is the maximum the merchant can pay, and Eugene agrees to that. Eugene exits, having bought new elegant clothes. He looks at a written sign, realizing that letters still look like worms to him despite learning the basics from Vilid. Marion comments on his new clothes looking decent, thinking they are worth that money. Eugene tells her the merchant was a generous person even though it was his first time buying and selling. Marion mocks Eugene's description of the merchant as generous, pointing out he was just a pushover. Marion's eyes shine with greed seeing the 30 silver coins, while she regrets that Eugene didn't press more to convince the merchant to sell more expensive silk, commenting that he missed a winning deal. Eugene explains he only needs clothes to cover his body completely to block sunlight, so Marion scolds him, mocking his dreary lifestyle, believing he should enjoy life more instead of hiding all the time. Marion starts narrating her fantasies about the life of noble vampires living in luxurious castles, wearing silk and drinking fresh blood in wine goblets, emphasizing that ambition is necessary to rise in this world. Eugene is surprised by her vast knowledge even though she lived in a swamp, so Marion reminds him she is originally from the spirit world and heard many stories from elders who visited the human world and returned with priceless wisdom. Marion advises him on the necessity of learning the imperial language and ancient runes, for since he will live for at least 200 years unless killed, he must learn everything. Eugene suddenly asks her if she can read, and she answers with complete honesty. No. Later that night, while Eugene sits before the campfire, Vilide approaches him hesitantly, interrupting Eugene's conversation with the fairy. Vilide asks nervously about the person Eugene was just talking to as he saw no one else. Eugene salvages the situation quickly, claiming he was talking to himself, then changes the subject, asking the boy about the state of his stomach after vomiting earlier, so Vilheid apologizes for that unseemly scene. The boy explains that the sight of skinning the rabbit for food reminded him of the morning massacre, triggering his nausea. Miriam comments that it was too harsh for him, while Eugene reassures him that ordinary people don't get used to seeing corpses easily. The boy decides to utilize the time, telling Eugene he still has energy and the night is long. Vilid offers enthusiastically to teach him writing since they have surplus paper, appearing happy to be useful. The night lesson begins, and Vilid is surprised by Eugene's speed of comprehension, wondering in amazement if learning letters is usually this easy, sincerely praising Eugene. He tells Eugene he learned everything that usually took him months, but he tells the boy humbly that this is exaggerated praise. Eugene wonders seriously if just learning to read a little will be enough for Vilid, who will become a noble son overnight. Vilid admits it doesn't seem real to him yet, as his mother never told him details, and he hadn't thought deeply about it before. The boy adds with a sad smile and clear tension that he doesn't even expect Sir Terwin to welcome him warmly. Suddenly, conversation is cut off by the appearance of a group of horsemen and armed men emerging from the trees. A man with friendly features and a light beard approaches, greeting them as folks, explaining they are having trouble finding a camping spot and asking permission to share the place. Eugene shoots them a scrutinizing look, noticing their good weapons and armor and their discipline in formation, confirming to him they are not ordinary bandits. Eugene realizes they are real mercenaries, different from the vagrants he met earlier, while their leader notices a child in the group and asks about their destination. Eugene thinks fast, realizing the man is asking in the manner of professional mercenaries, and that a reckless lie might raise more suspicion. So he decides to tell the truth and answers that they are on their way to Lord Terwin's castle. Leader Bardic beams and tells them they are heading to the same place, offering to share food, drink, and meat in exchange for sharing the spot. They are interrupted rudely by a young blonde soldier named Robin, objecting to sharing the place with strangers. Captain Bardic apologized to Eugene for Robin's behavior, explaining he joined the mercenary squad recently and doesn't know his limits yet, asking him to forgive his slip. Bardic introduces himself, and Eugene responds introducing himself as Knight Jan Eugene, which surprises the blonde soldier who repeats sarcastically, "Knight?" Robin bursts out laughing, asking Eugene mockingly what makes him look like a knight, pointing out he has no horse and wears no armor. Robin gets close to Eugene's face challengingly, asking him to be honest and admit he isn't a real knight. He pokes his finger into Eugene's chest rudely, asserting he never heard of a noble family named Eugene. Robin's features change to a sly demonic look as he accuses Eugene of forgery. Eugene stares at him with cold red eyes, realizing he has already told Villiard he is a knight, and thus he cannot back down or tell a different lie now. Eugene analyzes the situation coldly, realizing that the mercenaries approach for a different reason and that the issue of whether he is a real knight or not isn't that important to them right now, but he knows their insistence on doubting him would completely tip the scales. Eugene grips the hilt of his sword under his cloak, estimating that their number is small and he can wipe them all out if necessary. Leader Bardic notices the killing intent and the shift in the atmosphere, so he calls out quickly and firmly to his reckless subordinate, Robin. With a sudden lightning-fast movement, Bardic delivers a powerful punch to Robin's face before he goes any further, while Eugene watches the scene calmly. Robin's body flies through the air from the force of the blow to hit the ground hard and violently. The leader rushes to apologize to Eugene in a polite tone, asking him to forgive the insolence and disrespect of this rookie. Eugene accepts the apology with cold confidence, ordering them to stick to their positions, while the leader thanks him for his mercy and patience. Eugene realizes deep down that suspicions will continue to grow from now on, so he decides he needs to assume the role of a knight and prove it as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary attention. Later, away from Eugene, Bardic sits beside Robin, who is still unconscious. Robin wakes up suddenly and wonders in shock why he was hit so harshly, so the leader scolds him, calling him a mindless fool. Bardic yells at him angrily, asking how he dares to attack a knight without a shred of fear, as if he were asking for death himself. The leader hits him on the head again, explaining sharply that he just saved his life and that they all almost died because of him. Robin argues, underestimating Eugene, asking what is scary about a shabby-looking man carrying a short sword, so the leader accuses him of judging by appearances, and being so short-sighted, he can't see 2 steps ahead. The leader asks him for his estimate of the price of Eugene's cloak, explaining it is made of high-quality lycanthrope leather, and even the cheapest type of it exceeds 10 silver coins. Robin is shocked and stunned, realizing the price of the cloak alone equals his salary for 3 whole months. The leader adds another note. Eugene was reading a letter, meaning he is educated and can read and write, which negates him being a mere commoner. The leader reveals the terrifying truth that Eugene was actually about to draw his sword, and if that had happened, they would all be dead, and perhaps only one person would have survived. While Robin was chattering ignorantly without knowing his place, death surrounded him from every side. Bardic explains precise details he noticed, that Eugene already had his right hand inside his cloak gripping his weapon while his left foot stepped back slightly. He explains that this stance is only taken by an expert who knows how to distribute his balance to match the path of his sword with extreme precision. He confirms to him in horror that if he had delayed intervening by 1 second, Rabin's head would be rolling on the ground, so Rabin tries to act tough, stammering that the leader would have blocked the attack. Bardic looks at him with complete seriousness, explaining to him that he truly doesn't realize the extent of Knight's terror and power. Knights are people who hold wooden swords for training from the moment they are born into noble families and dedicate their entire lives to learning the arts of killing. They dive into unknown dungeons and pierce through monsters' bodies without blinking or hesitating for a moment. They carve their glories and status by cutting down humans on battlefields, and only those whose hands are stained with that immense amount of blood catch the attention of nobles. In the end, after all this trouble and blood, they earn the title of knight. The leader explains that impersonating a knight is a major crime, and whether Eugene is a real knight is a problem or a fake is a bigger disaster because anyone who dares to claim that so boldly must be insane. Bardic asserts that no one dares to do that unless they are confident enough to bet their life on their sword, and the fact that Eugene revealed his identity at this age means he has reached a very high level of power. Raban asks, sweating with fear, if that means Eugene is stronger than the leader himself, and Bardic admits tensely that this is likely. The leader concludes his speech by saying Eugene mentioned he is heading to Lord Terwin's castle, perhaps because of the newly discovered dungeon. And since they are heading to the same place, they will inevitably meet him again while Eugene's eye glints in the darkness watching everything. Eugene smiles a sly smile, realizing the title of knight carries more weight and influence than he imagined, which serves his plan perfectly, but he knows at the same time he needs more preparation to master this role. Eugene analyzes the situation with a strategic mindset, noting that except for the rookie soldier he knocked down, the rest of the group are competent and respectable mercenaries, which raises a worrying question in his mind. Why did the Tion family hire scum like those he killed earlier when they have the ability to employ professionals like these, and why didn't they send their own private soldiers? Eugene feels there is a missing link and something suspicious going on in secret. The mercenaries notice Eugene approaching them, and Robin asks nervously why he is coming towards them. Eugene reveals his face smiling, and tells them he heard they are also heading to Lord Tion's castle. With a friendly and convincing tone, Eugene suggests they travel together since their destination is the same, exploiting the situation to his advantage. The rookie soldier Robin is stunned by Eugene's sudden handsomeness and the bright smile he flashed, finding himself agreeing stammeringly and with involuntary enthusiasm, describing him as very handsome, while his leader looks at him in astonishment. The convoy reaches the village of Martila, a village belonging to the Twin Territory, where streets bustle with life and passers-by. Eugene walks through the crowds covering his face, feeling relieved that the mercenary group believed his lie and was convinced of him being a knight, granting him a golden opportunity to gather useful information during their shared journey. The fairy Mirian appears suddenly beside him, wondering curiously what will happen next, calling him Lord Eugene in a cheerful tone. Mirian tells him she carried out his orders and eavesdropped on the mercenaries' conversations, so Eugene asks her seriously if she picked up anything useful. Mirian relays what she heard, revealing that Lord Tion's health is deteriorating so badly, he might die at any moment, perhaps even tomorrow. She adds another crucial piece of information. A new dungeon was recently discovered in his lands, and it is rumored that conquering it will bring immense wealth. But the Tion family lacks the money and manpower needed to open and exploit it. Eugene thinks about the dungeon with interest while Mirian raises a worrying question about the boy Villad's fate. If Lord Tion dies soon, what will happen to the child? Won't he end up an orphan again as soon as he arrives? Eugene answers her with harsh coldness that this matter does not concern him, which angers Mirian, who screams at him, condemning his passivity and asking what they should do. Mirian points out anxiously that the boy might be killed like a dog by his brothers in the midst of the heirs' conflict, while Eugene looks at the silent village amidst the crowd. Eugene deduces the real reason behind Lord Tion summoning his illegitimate son at this time, suspecting he simply wishes to see his child for the last time before his time comes. He says to himself that his fate and the boy's fate will change from now on in one way or another. Finally, they reach their destination where Rose Castle, Lord Tion's residence, looms on the horizon with its massive, majestic structure. Eugene enters through the main gate, noticing the castle is much larger than he expected. Miriam flies around him in great fascination, advising him to climb the ranks quickly, so he too can live in a luxurious castle like this. Eugene silences her, asking her to stop the nonsense and enter, while Vilid watches them, surprised by what Eugene is doing. A guard stops them sternly, demanding they identify themselves and the reason for their visit. Leader Bartik steps forward with a confident smile, introducing his group as mercenaries commissioned by the Balan Merchant Guild, so the guard asks about the identity of the rest. Before he can answer, a blond young man with arrogant features intervenes, introducing himself as Kamara, the eldest son and heir of the Tion family, asking coldly if the carriage behind them carries their goods. Bartik confirms they delivered the goods safely, so Kamara orders them rudely not to stand motionless, and to start unloading immediately. Kamara notices Eugene standing away from the workers, so he asks him in a condescending tone about his identity and why he isn't moving to work with the others. Eugene steps forward steadily and calmly, introducing himself as Nightjan Eugene and points to Viliad, explaining that this child is with him. Suddenly, a firm voice interrupts them, calling Brother Kamara, scolding him, and inquiring what he thinks he is doing now, while Eugene and the heir turned toward the source of the voice. Eugene mutters that he knows this voice well, while annoyance is clear on Kamara's face. A knight wearing a red cloak and shining armor steps forward, asserting strictly that he repeated this many times and that inspecting strangers is his duty as castle guard, while Eugene stares at him with intense focus. Eugene's features freeze under his mask as he listens to that familiar voice, telling himself it's impossible to ever forget this man's tone. His memory immediately takes him back to the painful past where the general director of the vampire hunting unit appears in his memories, the person who found him for the first time when he was hiding. Eugene relives those terrifying moments, remembering that this man is the one who tortured and chased him relentlessly alongside Young Dirt. It turns out the owner of the voice is Bertolt Tion, the second son of the Tion family, and the family's direct knight standing imposingly in his red cloak. Bertolt directs his question seriously to his older brother, inquiring what he is doing out here. Kamara replies with a side glance full of annoyance and sarcasm, asking if he has to submit a report on every little thing he does, hinting mockingly that Bertolt's behavior suggests to everyone he is acting like the family's actual heir. Bertolt's features change to annoyance, denying that is his intention. Eugene interrupts this family argument coldly, presenting a letter and informing them it is sent from Chief Jeb of Broadwind Village. Bertolt tries to take the letter quickly, surprise on his face upon hearing the name Broadwind, but Eugene pulls his hand away. He hands the letter to Kamara while staring at Bertolt's face. Kamara reads the letter, his eyes widening in shock, unable to believe its contents, stating that the mercenaries were completely wiped out in a wolf attack and that the child brought by this knight is the family's illegitimate son. Vilid steps forward with trembling steps, introducing himself, so Kamara's features suddenly shift to a fake smile, welcoming him as their new brother. While Bertolt looks at him with a cold and scary look, Kamara tells the boy that their father misses him very much. Bertolt issues orders to the servants rudely, asking them to take the boy to clean him and dress him in decent clothes, while Vilid looks at Eugene in fear. Before they move, Eugene intervenes suddenly, putting an end to the situation, which surprises Bertolt, who stops looking at him in astonishment. Eugene demands firmly that the reward be discussed first and conditions meeting Lord Tion personally. Bertolt's eyes flare with anger, and he shouts immediately that this is impossible. Bertolt explains in a sharp tone that his father's health isn't good right now, making meeting him difficult, and offers to pay Eugene the reward in gold coins in exchange for him leaving now. Eugene stares at them with red eyes, thinking of the trouble he went through to bring this precious brother here, and that he won't leave that easily. Eugene presses with a silent threat, warning them against forcing him to repeat his request twice. Suddenly, Kamara intervenes, asking why. That wouldn't be possible, so Bertolt explodes angrily in his brother's face in a scene showing the deep rift between the brothers. Kamara argues they must introduce the new brother to father anyway, while Bertolt insists on his stance that their father cannot stay awake even for an hour, and they cannot allow him to meet a wanderer of unknown origin like this. The argument heats up between the brothers as Bertolt accuses him of trying to manipulate their father's schedule as he pleases, while Bertolt replies angrily accusing him of twisting his words. Kamara turns toward Eugene with a fake apologetic smile, expressing regret that his brother playing the role of heir makes things difficult. Putting his hand on Eugene's shoulder, Kamara asks him with artificial kindness to return home safely this time. Then he turns to Vilid, telling him he will guide him personally, suggesting he take him on a tour around the castle first while the boy follows him resignedly. Eugene watches the scene with piercing eyes, realizing they had no intention of allowing him to meet the Lord from the start. Suddenly, place shakes with the sound of a heavy impact, and a massive shadow appears in front of Bertel, welcoming the second son, Tion. A huge muscular man with red hair appears carrying a group of unconscious men over his shoulder, addressing them with a savage smile saying he had been looking for them for a long time. The man throws the bodies to the ground in front of the stunned brothers and Eugene, explaining these are the mercenaries who were looting villagers instead of training as ordered, so he collected them himself. The massive red-haired man named Galfredik suggests with a savage smile that they execute one of the captive mercenaries to be an example to the rest, wondering if that's a good idea. Bertel watches Eugene cautiously. Bertel thinks that these mercenaries, although temporary, were hired specifically for the purpose of dungeon subjugation. He adds firmly, cutting off Galfredik's bloodlust, explaining he will discipline the mercenaries later and suggests entering the castle to talk away from the many eavesdropping ears outside, so Galfredik agrees immediately. While they are outside, mercenary leader Bardik asks Eugene if he knows the identity of that huge man, confirming to him he is Knight Sir Galfredik. Bardik explains with admiration that this man achieved third place in the tournament held by the Evergrove family recently, describing him as a very promising knight. Bardik goes on describing Galfredik's terrifying strength, which resembles that of monsters, and how thanks to his high techniques, he managed to sweep through over 1,000 competitors in the tournament arena that day. Eugene wonders why someone of this power and status would come to such a remote place. Bardik replies that the reason must be the opening of the newly discovered dungeon. He tells Eugene that the knight who succeeds in the first conquest of a new dungeon gains wide fame and great glory, given that the conquest process is fraught with dangers to the point that countless souls are lost during it. Bardik speculates that Sir Galfredik intends to use this achievement as a stepping stone to obtain a knighthood from a larger and more influential family, while Eugene mutters the word knighthood, thinking of his next step. Eugene turns suddenly to Bardik, reminding him that his current contract ends today, so the leader confirms that with a question. Eugene smiles a mysterious smile under his mask, asking Bardik to allow him to make a new request this time. That night, Kamara sits inside the castle looking at Bertel punishing the mercenaries, determined inwardly that he is the one who must open this dungeon, not anyone else. Drowning in his dark thoughts about his brother Bertel, who started openly aspiring to the heir position since their father's health deteriorated, realizing that Bertel bringing a strong knight like Galfredik and his connections means only one thing. Kamara is certain his brother is definitely planning to succeed in opening the dungeon himself. And if that happens, public opinion and people support will tilt completely in Bertel's favor, severely threatening Kamara's position. Kamara feels helpless and confused, wondering what he should do as he cannot simply hire random nobodies to face this great challenge. His train of thought is interrupted by his servant announcing Sir Eugene's desire to meet him, which surprises Kamara. Kamara immediately remembers he is the knight who brought Villiad earlier, and orders him to be let in after a moment of thought. The door opens for Eugene to enter with his usual presence, and Kamara welcomes him as Sir Eugene. Kamara tries to preempt the conversation, reassuring Eugene not to worry about the boy, Villiad, confirming he pays special attention to his safety and invites him to sit, promising him his father will grant him the reward as soon as he wakes up. Kamara points out he was happy Eugene handed the letter to him in front of Bertel, explaining that act allowed Kamara to hold his head up a little in front of his rival brother. Eugene smiles affectedly, expressing his gratitude for that, but quickly changes his tone, noting that intervening as a third party in family affairs was a puzzling matter. Kamara gets to the heart of the matter, asking Eugene about his business and purpose, and if he wants to meet his father personally to check on his condition, to which Eugene answers that is true. But he also came to make a special offer to Lord Kamara. With a piercing look, Eugene delivers his direct offer to join the dungeon subjugation squad. Kamara bursts out, laughing with extreme sarcasm, unable to control himself at the strangeness of the request. Kamara wipes tears of laughter, describing Eugene as funnier than he expected and questioning mockingly if he is a knight at all. Kamara confronts him with rumors he heard about him killing 5 bandits, wondering if he intends to join the squad just to boost his reputation as a knight and inquiring why he should indulge him in this absurdity. Eugene smiles with complete confidence, asserting his offer will never be bad for Lord Kamara in his current situation. Eugene reveals the details of his tempting offer, only 100 silver coins for him and his mercenaries and settling for only half the byproducts, with magic stones excluded from his share. Kamara's features change to seriousness and suspicion, realizing this offer is suspicious because it is too good and far below the usual market price. So Eugene asks him coldly if he likes the offer or not. Eugene smiles that sly smile again, confronting Kamara with the harsh truth that the person in a hurry is not him, but Kamara himself. Eugene continues explaining his financial offer, clarifying that in case of a successful dungeon opening, he would settle for 100 silver coins for him and his mercenaries, plus half the treasures found, excluding magic stones from his share. Kamara analyzes the offer in his mind, finding it generous to the point of raising suspicion. So he asks Eugene clearly if he realizes this price is far below market price, putting him before the choice of acceptance or direct refusal. Kamara starts analyzing Eugene's character based on his appearance, deducing he looks like a wandering knight with no noble backer. And since knights live and die for honor, and he doesn't seem greedy for money, honor must be everything to him. Kamara imagines Eugene as the noble knight who is above material things, convinced this is the real motive behind his meager offer. Kamara sees in this offer an irreplaceable opportunity, but Eugene reminds him with a confident smile that he is not the party in a hurry in this deal, but Kamara is the one racing against time. Kamara realizes then that Eugene isn't just a knight relying on muscles like the rest, but a smart person who knows how to manipulate the situation and knows exactly how to manage this game to his advantage. Kamara's view of Eugene changes, seeing in him a cunning that traditional knights lack, increasing his admiration for him. Kamara makes up his mind and agrees to the offer, confirming there is no reason to refuse such a favorable opportunity, and extends his hand to shake Eugene's, expressing he looks forward to working with him. Eugene explains the practical reason behind the idea of waving magic stones, noting that purifying them is difficult and processing fees are expensive, while other byproducts are sold at full price immediately upon delivery, making them more profitable and faster to liquidate. He remembers when Eugene asked Bardic for a simple request to introduce him to a merchant guild he trusts to sell those products, so Bardic agrees with a broad smile. Kamara extends his hand welcomingly, certain that, with these terms and arrangements, he will have no reason to refuse Eugene's joining. The scene shifts to the meeting room where Knight Galfredic sits with Bertel. Bertel describes the idea of adding new members to the subjugation squad at the last minute as ridiculous, while Galfredic asserts the dungeon is not a playground for children. Galfredic waves his dagger in the air threateningly, announcing his strict law. Inside, the only thing that exists is life or death, and if a person falls behind even once, they die where they stand. Announcing his categorical rejection of any half-trained skills that might slow their progress, Bertel points out with disdain that his expectations are already low since this knight was found by his brother, Kamara. Thinking that his brother doesn't have good relations with neighboring nobles nor a wide network of acquaintances, he asked Galfredic to deal with the new knight himself if solutions run out for them, which surprises the knight. Kamara enters the meeting room apologizing for his delay in gathering everyone, claiming he was chatting with the new knight. Kamara introduces Eugene formally with an affected smile, announcing he's joining the subjugation squad. Eugene enters quietly behind Kamara, accompanied by Bardic's mercenary squad. Bertel scrutinizes Eugene and his mercenaries, remembering this is the man who led the shabby-looking mercenary group he saw earlier. Here, Bertoltian intervenes, objecting with a cold smile, asserting that with all due respect, they cannot accept someone whose background and skills are completely unconfirmed. Kamara replies confidently, guaranteeing Eugene's skill at least, while Bertolt and Galfredic watch the situation skeptically. Kamara reminds them of the bandit group causing major problems at the territory border, which they failed to solve for a long time. Kamara plays his trump card, revealing that Sir Eugene wiped out that entire group with a single short sword on his way here, wondering if the skill is enough to convince them. Without warning, a flying dagger rushes with lightning speed toward Eugene. Eugene deflects the dagger skillfully and calmly, sending the blade crashing forcefully into the wooden wall behind him and piercing it while everyone watches in amazement. Galfredic appears smiling a savage smile, commenting with the words, "All right then." Galfredic apologizes with clear sarcasm for his rude words at their first meeting, but directs a veiled insult at Eugene, noting that his scar-free skin and lack of a tan suggest he grew up very spoiled. Galfredic stands at his full height in front of Eugene, his eyes shining with blatant challenge, asking him in a provocative tone if he minds showing them his skills, calling him young master. Outside, the news spreads like wildfire as people gather in the square screaming in amazement that Sir Galferdic is dueling someone now. All eyes turn to the castle square where everyone eagerly awaits seeing the skills of the knight who took third place in the grand tournament. The crowd whispers with terror and admiration about his legendary strength, saying he has the ability to tear monsters apart with his bare hands, wondering in amazement if this man is truly human. In contrast, Eugene stands completely calmly before this human monster. One spectator says he's starting to feel pity for him. Galferdic draws his huge sword with a confident and provocative smile. Eugene draws his sword and mimics Galferdic's stance. The referee loudly announces the start of the duel, and the bells ring declaring the beginning of the battle. Galferdic rushes in with tremendous speed, and swords clash against each other causing sparks to fly in the air. Violent and fast blows follow as Eugene skillfully blocks his opponent's heavy attacks while fragments scatter from the intensity of the collision. Galferdic smiles with savage enjoyment as he provokes Eugene to face him. The barrage of strikes continues, and Galferdic is forced to retreat under the weight of the relentless attack, trying to absorb the force of the blows. The mercenaries watch the duel in amazement, and the rookie soldier wonders if Galferdic is being pushed back without a fight, but Commander Bardic corrects him intelligently, explaining that Galferdic is not being defeated but is merely testing his opponent and sensing his style. Eugene continues his sweeping attack, thinking he is controlling the battle, while Galferdic allows him to do so on purpose. In those moments, Galferdic analyzes his opponent's style precisely, noticing that his swordsmanship is rougher and more random than he expected. He follows no specific pattern and has no clear fighting habits, making predicting his movements difficult. Galferdic concludes that this is not a style polished by traditional training, but a savage style of someone who grew up and was raised in the wild relying on instinct. Eugene notices Galferdic's analytical gaze, so Galferdic smiles mockingly and levels a direct accusation at him that he lied about being a knight. Galferdic skillfully reveals Eugene's truth, describing his swordsmanship as rootless and his stance as clumsy, asserting that he has no formal training and relies only on his supernatural physical abilities. He adds that swordsmanship isn't all it means to be a knight, but he realizes that exchanging a few blows was enough to reveal the truth. Eugene decides to respond practically, attacking Galferdic and telling him he chatters too much. Galferdic blocks the attack with a crazed smile, challenging Eugene to defeat him if he wants him to shut his mouth. The pace of the fight intensifies, and the arena turns into a storm of swords and exchanged blows. Galferdic delivers a crushing blow with his sword while Eugene tries to block it. A powerful explosion results from the clash of forces, raising a thick cloud of dust that obscures vision. The crowd cheers enthusiastically while Bertol smiles triumphantly, wondering if Eugene has fallen unconscious from that knockout blow. But suddenly, from amidst the dust, a terrifying red eye gleams, and Eugene appears pouncing with lightning speed. Galferdic blocks the attack, astonishment overcoming him as he realizes Eugene is learning and evolving amazingly fast during the fight. The two exchange a series of fast and deadly attacks as Eugene begins to match Galferdic's savagery, and a powerful collision occurs resulting in their swords breaking. The warriors throw away their broken swords at the same time. In a moment of direct engagement, hands lock and faces draw close to each other in silent challenge. Galferdic laughs in amazement, wondering to himself how Eugene possesses all this immense strength even though his physical build is much smaller than him. Galferdic stares into his opponent's eye, admitting internally an inescapable truth, acknowledging that his raw power is overwhelmingly superior to his own. Galferdic realizes deep down that although his opponent excels in physical strength, he possesses the absolute advantage in combat experience. Galferdic changes his combat stance with intense focus, ready to exploit that experience to his advantage. Galferdic rushes with a sweeping attack, but Eugene dodges it with amazing flexibility, leaving his opponent striking the air. Galferdic continues his brutal attack, trying to crush Eugene with his massive strength while Eugene evades lightly. In the midst of the clash, Eugene notices a gap in his opponent's defense and prepares to deliver a counterstrike. Galferdic realized in that moment that Eugene's movements aren't precise like training knights, but are rapid adaptation and crisis management driven by pure survival instinct. And before he can comprehend the matter, Eugene surprises him with a powerful punch to his face, making Galferdic wonder in amazement about the origin of this mysterious fighter. Galferdic admits defeat to himself in this exchange as Eugene delivers his punch. Eugene's punch sends Galferdic's massive body flying through the air with incredible force. The knight's body crashes violently into the back wall of the arena, causing destruction and a cloud of dust. The referee announces with a trembling voice the end of the duel with the victory of Knight Jan Eugene, while Eugene stands panting. The audience buzzes with whispers and astonishment, unable to believe that this unknown knight possesses insane strength that enabled him to defeat Galfredik. The mercenaries belonging to Eugene burst into laughter and pride, pointing out that this strong person is their leader and knight. Amidst the debris, Galfredik opens his eyes looking at the sky. Galfredik rises slowly, and eyes turn to him with anticipation and fear of what he will do after his defeat. Galfredik advances with heavy steps toward Eugene, who stands on guard. Suddenly, Galfredik grabs Eugene's hand and raises it high, asking the audience for a round of applause for tonight's winner, which surprises Eugene. The crowd cheers with intense enthusiasm, chanting the name Jan Eugene throughout the castle. Bertel watches the scene, his features reflecting a mixture of shock and suppressed anger at this unexpected result. The scene shifts to inside the castle, where Eugene sits before a luxurious dinner table, and the servants tell him they received strict orders from Master Kamara. The servant explains that Kamara insisted Eugene eat well and rest in preparation for opening the dungeon, so they will supervise his meals with extreme care. The servant stands waiting for Eugene's assessment of the lighting and his choice of wine, while the fairy, Miriam, whispers, mocking the predicament as they cannot tell humans that vampires do not need food. Miriam wonders playfully if he will get a stomachache if he eats all this, so Eugene decides to act immediately, holding his stomach and feigning pain. The servants look at him with worry and confusion as he feigns sudden illness. Eugene shouts, asking them to leave, claiming he will take care of his food himself from now on. While Miriam thinks he should tell Kamara, he prefers staying alone due to his habit as someone who lived isolated in the mountains for decades. The next day, everyone's view of him changed 180 degrees, and Kamara welcomes him with a broad and welcoming smile, calling him the capable knight Jan Eugene and asking if he slept well. Kamara laughs affectedly, noting that he noticed Eugene refused all comforts and services he sent him. Suddenly, Raven bursts into the place with a loud voice, while Eugene seems annoyed by this morning disturbance. Galfredik jumps toward Eugene, trying to hug him, describing him as a friend and comrade, while Eugene tries to push him away, saying coldly not to stick to him like that. Galfredik asked them if they slept well, complaining cheerfully that his face was still throbbing with pain from Eugene's punch to the point he tossed and turned in bed all night. Galfredik points to his swollen face full of bruises while laughing loudly, asking Eugene mockingly if he sees these traces. Eugene thinks he is asking for more beating. Galfredik suggests with great enthusiasm having another sparring match today since the weather is nice, while soldiers and mercenaries gather around demanding to watch, putting Eugene in an unenviable position. Eugene thinks to himself that Galfredik doesn't care if he is a real knight or not, and that other suspicions have faded one by one, which is exactly what he wanted. But he is still not used to this crowding around him. Galfredik continues his playful provocation. Eugene indicates he looks like he's asking for another hit, so Galfredik replies confidently that they won't know the result unless they try. Suddenly, the boy, Vilid, appears behind them, signs of torture on his face, while Eugene notices his arrival. Vilid asks in a faint voice if Eugene has been okay all this time. The scene shifts to the past in the torture chamber, where a man in torn clothes screams, begging his master to have mercy and forgive him. Bertolt Thien stands with cold and cruel features over the man lying on the ground bleeding, scolding him in a sharp tone because if he had done his job correctly, all this mess wouldn't have happened. Bertel blames him clearly, asserting that if the boy had been killed in that cursed village from the start, that Red-Eyed Knight would never have reached Rose Castle. Bertel's eyes glow a scary blue as he screams with suppressed anger that his plans would have gone smoothly without any obstacle were it not for this abject failure. The subordinate tries to justify his failure while trembling, claiming the mercenary group he hired was supposed to be reliable, but they were just fools finished off by black wolves. So Bertel mocks him for not verifying the matter himself before placing the request. Bertel grabs his subordinate's face with brutal force, asking him sadistically if the eyes in his head are just for decoration. While the subordinate looks in terror, Bertel decides bloodily that if those eyes are useless, it is better to gouge them out. The subordinate screams in pain and terror as Bertel carries out his threat, and he asks coldly after finishing what he must do now to rectify the situation. Bertel realizes he cannot kill someone who has already infiltrated the castle and is publicly visible, but soon a demonic idea flashes in his mind. He looks at Williard's body lying on the ground, muttering that that way would be the only one, and it would clean up the corpse nicely too, hinting at a plan to get rid of the boy inside the dungeon. The scene returns to Eugene and Vilid, where Eugene deduces intelligently that Bertel ordered the boy to join the dungeon subjugation squad, opening soon. Vilid sits despairingly in his room, admitting he came here to die, wondering bitterly if he was sent to the dungeon just to meet his end. Eugene reminds him of the mercenary incident that attacked the village, revealing the shocking truth that those third-rate mercenaries were sent by one of his brothers. Eugene confirms to the boy clearly that they never wanted him to reach the castle alive, increasing Villiard's horror and despair. But Eugene approaches him with a sharp look, telling him there is one way to survive this inevitable fate. Eugene offers him the simple and brilliant solution. All he has to do is become his squire. Eugene explains to the stunned boy that he has turned 16 and completed his coming-of-age ceremony, meaning he needs no guardian's approval and can choose his own path. Eugene puts him before two choices with no third: either stay frozen in place, waiting for them to kill him as is the case now, or choose to fight until the last breath of his life. The dungeon opening day arrives, and the squad stands before the massive gate locked with chains, realizing that since it hasn't been opened yet, no one knows what kind of monsters will appear. Galfredic takes command, explaining the plan based on the gate size. They expect low-rank monsters like goblins and kobolds and medium monsters like trolls and spiders, warning that high-rank monsters are unpredictable, ordering immediate retreat if they appear. Galfredic issues orders to search the dungeon tunnels first, while porters whisper in the back, relieved to be just porters, hoping their blood won't be spilled this time. One porter plans to feign injury and stay back once weak monsters are dealt with, but his colleague calls him a fool, explaining that first raids are brutal and no one cares about the rear lines, and he doesn't deserve to die like a stray dog for a few pennies. The cowardly porter suggests fleeing if things go south, but suddenly receives a strong blow from behind. Bertiltian appears among the porters, asking them with a terrifying look about the location of the bastard Vilade, confirming he clearly assigned him to this spot to be among the porters. The porter wonders suspiciously if Bertilt is talking about that kid Vilade, pointing to him. While Bertil turns to Vilid, finding him handing Eugene a small bag of snacks, asking him gently to return safely, to which Eugene answers affirmatively. Bertil rushes towards them, calling Vilid a rat who sneaked in quickly, and calling Eugene a rootless barbarian. Bertol screams in Vilid's face, scolding him for wasting time in this place. He orders him in a commanding and cruel tone to pick up his bag and head to his position immediately without delay. When he finds he isn't answering, he rushes to grab him, wondering if he has gone deaf, while Eugene watches the scene closely. As Bertil attempts to grab the boy, ordering him to move, a strong hand intervenes to stop his movements suddenly. Bertil looks in shock at his stopped hand, seeing Eugene gripping his wrist tightly. Eugene addresses Bertolt sharply, condemning his intention to send a boy, who never held anything sharper than a kitchen knife in his life, into a dungeon hole full of monsters. Eugene asks him with a scary look from under his mask if he is crazy. Bertol shakes off Eugene's hand angrily, calling him insolent and claiming falsely that he simply wishes to make his brother strong. Bertol tries to impose his control, ordering Eugene to know his place, asserting he has no right to issue orders to this child. But Eugene replies coldly, cutting him off, saying he believes Bertolt is the one who doesn't know his place here. Eugene drops his bombshell, announcing that this child has officially become his squire, shield-bearer since yesterday. Bertil is stunned while Eugene announces loudly that everyone here is a witness to that. Eugene explains strictly that this relationship forms a bond stronger than blood, directly threatening Bertil that if he dares touch a single hair on this child, he will consider it a direct challenge against him. Eugene gets close to Bertil's face defiantly, suggesting with sarcasm laced with threat that they warm up their bodies a little before entering the dungeon. Bertil stammers, stepping back in fear, wondering who gave him permission to do that. He adds that adopting a bastard from another family isn't a simple matter, and this is exactly what might destroy the boy's future. Meanwhile, Bertil hears some warriors commenting that the dungeon will be safe with strong people like Eugene and Galfordic at the front, not just knights in name. One mentions the amazing duel between them, and another warrior replies bitterly that he would need a whole second life of training to reach their level. Kamara intervenes suddenly, claiming with a forced smile that he too can entrust Sir Eugene with his brother, justifying his new stance that the boy is already an adult and has completed his coming-of-age ceremony, so he has the right to choose his own path. Bertolt stares at them with malice. While Eugene thinks that Vilid is prey, and once the weak is marked by a predator, survival becomes a harsh matter. Eugene realizes that even if the weak hide and hold their breath, the predator will track them down and tear their throats eventually, as shown in Bertolt's treacherous looks. Eugene gives Vilid golden advice in his memory, telling him that if he cannot become strong, he must form a pack. The scout presents his report of no wandering monsters nearby or escaping from the tunnels. Galfredik smiles with savage enthusiasm, announcing they can now open the dungeon. He gives the signal to move while the massive gate opens slowly. The terrifying darkness of the dungeon appears while soldiers shout enthusiastically, announcing the start of the raid. Galfredik turns to the others in the back, delivering his final sentence before entering, that they must stay alive by themselves. The squad rushes into the dungeon with intense enthusiasm amidst battle cries, signaling the start of the assault. Echoing in their minds is the farewell from Kamara and Viliad at the gate, wishing them safety and divine protection, promising to meet them in 4 days. But the reality inside is a chaotic hell, with monsters raining down from the ceiling onto the soldiers, sparking panic and causing one to scream for help as blood spatters everywhere. Galfredik intervenes with his massive sword, cleaving a monster in two, attempting to bring the situation under control. Galfredik screams at the panicked soldiers in a rage, calling them idiots and demanding they maintain their battle formation correctly. Galfredik orders the archers in the center to return to their positions, cover the ceiling, and fire arrows, warning the soldiers not to let the monsters breach their ranks and break the formation. Terror grips one soldier who deeply regrets volunteering for this suicide mission, realizing his worst fears have come true and that this was madness from the start. The soldier decides to flee toward the entrance to save his life, believing it's the only solution. But he is shocked to find a pack of monsters blocking the way back, grinning maliciously at him until someone intervenes to save him. Eugene appears coldly, calling the soldier a fool for thinking the path back would be free of monsters. Galfredik grabs the panicked soldier, explaining violently that staying and sticking with the group is the safest place to survive. He orders everyone to draw their swords and hold their positions in preparation for the confrontation. Galfredik realizes bitterly, seeing their poor performance, that these mercenaries are in a pathetic state because they were gathered in a rush, wondering in bewilderment how he can possibly conquer a dungeon with men like these. Matters get worse when a soldier alerts him to more incoming monsters, and another screams in terror that the attack is coming from behind as well, forcing Galfredik to think fast and order a formation change to face both fronts. Eugene suddenly intervenes, announcing he will handle the rear guard, and despite Galfredik's warning about the danger of being alone, Eugene dashes with lightning speed into the darkness. Galfredik stands stunned by Eugene's speed and unexpected boldness, and shortly after, he hears the sounds of monsters and violent fighting inside. Then something emerges from the darkness. Galfredik is shocked when he realizes that thing is the mask Eugene was wearing. Realizing the situation, Galfredik orders Bardik to cover his back and follow him immediately. Galfredik and his men run, but they are shocked by the vast distance Eugene covered in that short moment amidst the corpses of monsters. They find Eugene standing calmly after eliminating all the monsters coming from the intersection, holding a luminous flower and asking coldly if it is expensive. Galfredik arrives panting, and Bardik feels a sarcastic disappointment internally because Eugene doesn't even know a common luminous herb. Galfredik marvels at Eugene's exceptional skills despite his ignorance of simple matters, while Eugene notices the herb withering in his hand. After the battle ends, the wounded lie in the corridors receiving treatment amidst groans of pain and screams from severe bleeding. Eugene's men approach him carrying the magic stones they collected, and he orders them to pile them in front of him. Eugene looks at the small quantity in his hand, wondering if this is all they got after killing such large numbers. He orders them to rest, noting to himself that the magic stones here radiate a blue light, different from the one he obtained from the Wanderer previously. The fairy Miriam appears staring at the small magic stones with disappointment, noting they are underwhelming compared to high-quality stones, explaining to Eugene that a magic stone's quality is directly proportional to the monster's strength and size. Eugene asks her curiously if wild wanderers have larger stones. Miriam answers that dungeon monsters becoming wanderers in the wild doesn't necessarily mean their stones grow, but reminds him that the crocodile he absorbed earlier was massive and extremely powerful. She assures him that Wanderer was a special case hard to find, as it was an entity strong enough to take over her own territory. Eugene realizes then that devouring that Wanderer's red magic stone was a stroke of real luck, and Miriam tells him that at this rate, entering the dungeon and trying to impress nobles is pointless if the gains are meager. As Miriam wonders if there is a high-rank monster in this place, Eugene stops suddenly, having sensed something. Meanwhile, Galfredich shouts at the soldiers who thought they would get a break, ordering them back into formation immediately because break time is over. Galfredich scolds the soldiers, calling them weak, and announces that he and Sir Eugene will take the vanguard, threatening anyone who flees without orders that they will pay the price later. Eugene looks at Galfredich in astonishment, thinking of the irony. This is his first time in a dungeon too, yet he is asked to take the lead but decides he must step up because the mercenaries are less useful than he expected. Galfredich advances cautiously, realizing the incoming monsters are on a completely different level from those they faced so far. Galfredich signals to Eugene that the monsters controlling the dungeon for a long time were probably just using the goblins as pawns and that those coming now are the true masters. A group of heavily armed orcs appears, confirming Galfredich's deduction that they are facing at least mid-rank monsters. He deduces that if they can deal with these, high-rank monsters will be waiting for them in the dungeon depths while the soldiers swallow hard in fear. Eugene recalls the memory of that day, specifically the moment after he devoured the Swamp Lord's red magic stone where he acquired a very important ability. His eyes glow red as he wonders curiously if he will gain another ability if he devours a similar magic stone again. He returns to reality and analyzes the situation precisely, telling Galfredich there are footsteps of over 50 monsters 100 meters away with 3 heavier monsters behind them. Galfredich smiles with combat zeal, asking Eugene in a challenging tone if he wishes to try attacking himself this time. Without hesitation, he grabs a spear and throws it with maximum force. He delivers a crushing blow with his spear, splitting a monster's head open. Galfredich shouts at everyone, ordering an all-out attack, exploiting the chaos Eugene caused. Eugene moves among the orcs with incredible speed, tearing their bodies apart one by one. Galfredich orders the soldiers to follow Eugene and support him, and they respond enthusiastically. One soldier asks Eugene if they should join the fight, but Eugene is busy facing a massive orc appearing suddenly in front of him. Eugene dodges the giant monster's attack, then delivers a precise blow directly to its eye, blinding it. Eugene exploits the monster's scream in pain, moving flexibly to deal another blow, cutting off the huge monster's limbs. With a final decisive move, he plunges his sword into the monster's body, ending its life as blood splatters on his face and clothes. On that day before this majestic scene, the soldiers etched into their memories the image of the knight they had long admired. They watch Eugene crushing his enemies with overwhelming power. They describe his fighting style as an elegant duel, fair and honest, overflowing with unwavering nobility. They see in him a figure that never loses its dignity, unaware of the true savage nature lurking behind that mask. The soldiers realize in that moment that what they are seeing before them is completely different from the image of the knight they were used to. Instead of the usual nobility, Eugene looked like a ferocious beast reeking of blood and death, instilling dread in his allies before his enemies. After the battle ends, the soldiers sit exhausted amidst the orc corpses. Galfredich notices that most of the troops have lost the will to advance, not just because of physical fatigue, but due to the deep psychological shock from witnessing Eugene's brutality in combat. Galfredich decides inwardly that advancing further seems impossible given the soldiers' miserable state. Galfredich suggests to Eugene to return now since they achieved the required goal and reached the quota, but Eugene turns to him. Eugene confirms coldly that he still has plenty of energy, and leaving now seems like a waste of an opportunity he doesn't know when will recur. Galfredich shouts enthusiastically, announcing that if Eugene wants to stay, they have no choice but to push forward with him too, trying to motivate the rest. But Eugene surprises him with an unexpected order, asking him to lead the subjugation squad and take them out of the dungeon immediately. Eugene explains he will continue from here accompanied only by his mercenaries while the soldiers look at him in amazement. Galfredich realizes then that Eugene sensed the soldiers' exhaustion and allowed them to withdraw to save their lives, admiring the warm heart hiding behind that fierce and cold exterior. Galfredich watches Eugene's back as he moves away into the darkness, certain that this man is redefining the meaning of the word knight in his eyes. Eugene and his mercenaries venture deep into the dark dungeon filled with dense spider webs. Terror grips the young soldier, Rabin, holding his torch with a trembling hand, cursing his luck and wondering why he has to go. He tries to reassure himself that Sir Eugene can defeat trolls alone, and that he will be fine as long as he stays behind him and things go well. Suddenly, hears a sickening crunch under his foot and looks down nervously. He discovers he stepped on a small spider, realizing with horror that they have entered spider territory. Suddenly, hundreds of red eyes appear in the darkness as spiders surround them from all sides and block their path. The giant cave spider appears, a monster that lives in colonies, and dissolves its prey with strong acidic poison before devouring it. Raven screams in extreme panic as the monsters rush towards them in huge numbers. Commander Bardic screams warning of their sheer numbers and suggesting immediate retreat, but Eugene shoots him a sharp look, asking disapprovingly what retreat means. Eugene takes off like a tornado amidst the spiders, shredding their bodies with his sword in the blink of an eye as their blood scatters in the air. His eyes shine with terrifying confidence, asserting with a mocking smile that this number means nothing to him. Bardic asks Rabin to cover Eugene's back, but Rabin is busy defending himself with great difficulty. Eugene notices the danger looming over his follower while he fights on the front line. Rabin screams for help in a voice filled with terror as spiders crawl towards him. A huge spider pounces on him from above, opening its jaws to devour him while Rabin freezes in fear. At the last moment, Eugene intervenes, cutting the spider in half with a precise and powerful blow before it reaches Rabin. Rabin looks in amazement and shock at his savior, finding Eugene standing before him with overwhelming presence after saving his life at the critical moment. Eugene severs the spider's body with one decisive strike while Rabin looks at him in astonishment, wondering to himself if this man is the real monster here. Rabin gets up, expressing his great admiration for Eugene's amazing performance as usual and suggests returning now considering they have accomplished enough. He calls out to the commander to ask his opinion, seeing that they are doing well. But Bardic stops suddenly, realizing a terrifying truth. Even among wandering monsters, there are ranks and hierarchies. And since high ranks appear very rarely, they are not usually taken into account when planning a subjugation squad. Suddenly, a giant leg appears moving on the spider webs, and Bardic realizes without a doubt that this massive size means only one thing. It is the high-rank form of the giant cave spider. The Spider Lord appears with its massive body and glowing eyes, instilling terror in their souls. Bardic screams, ordering immediate withdrawal, explaining they are no match for a Lord-rank monster. He suggests in a trembling voice summoning Sir Galfredic for help, but Eugene rejects the idea. Eugene orders Bardic and Rabin to retreat immediately while he stares at the monster. Eugene's eye glows crimson red, and he announces savagely that this prey belongs to him alone. Bardic responds to the order stammering while a strange and terrifying feeling takes over him. He feels his body won't obey him, and every nerve screams to flee this place, not just because of the spider, but because of the terrifying aura Eugene emits. The fairy Miriam watches the fleeing soldiers, commenting that their instincts collapse due to the massive gap in status and power between them and her master. Eugene asks Miriam if this lord is on the same level as the swamp lord he faced previously. She answers negatively, asserting that this monster seems much stronger. Eugene smiles, deducing that this means the magic stone inside it will be larger as well. Eugene advances toward the colossal monster with confidence, addressing it mockingly and demanding it resist as much as it wants. For Eugene, the harder the treasure chest is to open, the higher the expectations for what's inside. The scene shifts to a small spider dangling by a thin thread toward a teacup in a sunny garden. Eugene knocks the spider away with a light flick of his finger sitting in his new form. It turns out the second ability Eugene acquired after devouring the Swamp Lord stone is camouflage. Using the skin-hardening ability that protects his body, he managed to mimic the appearance of natural human skin. Thanks to this ability, Eugene finally gained his freedom to stand in the sunlight, saving him the tedious trouble of constant hiding as one attendee asks him if he is walking around without his mask now. Eugene sits at a luxurious dining table surrounded by nobles, where a lady asks if he wore the mask all the time just to hide this beautiful face, while others ask him to tell stories of his heroics in the dungeon. The ladies speak admiringly of rumors, saying he defeated a huge spider alone, while Eugene remains silent. Miriam laughs, flying over him, mocking that her master's energy is being completely drained by this social interaction. The ladies go further in flirting, pointing out his superior beauty, and one wonders if he has elf blood in his lineage. Eugene is shocked by this assumption, thinking that being treated as an elf might make things more annoying and complicated than they are. Suddenly, a knight hits the table enthusiastically, declaring that this explains everything. The knight points out that this justifies Eugene's sharp vision even in the dungeon's pitch darkness and his hearing which exceeds that of wild dogs. The knight concludes his deduction with a piercing look, confirming he knew Eugene couldn't be just an ordinary human. While Eugene looks on nervously hiding his truth, Galfredik raises his voice amidst the banquet, holding a drink cup, expressing his amazement at the possibility of elf blood running in Eugene's veins while Robin tries to wiggle out of this awkward group hug. Galfredik wonders curiously, pointing to Eugene's face, how he managed to stay out of sight all that time with such striking features, noting that it seems difficult in these parts. Eugene replies that he didn't intentionally hide his identity or features, but circumstances dictated it. Galfredik is surprised by this response, while the ladies and the boy, Robin, seem embarrassed and confused by his rowdy behavior. Galfredik comments on the sweet words Eugene said to the ladies without blinking, which impresses them, while Eugene watches the scene calmly. Eugene realized that Galfredik, despite his frivolous appearance, possesses strangely sharp insight and decides that if he faces suspicions in the future, claiming elf origins might be an acceptable and convincing excuse for everyone. Eugene's memory goes back to the moment of devouring the magic stone, realizing that Act didn't just give him a new ability, but opened a door to something deeper. The moment the tattoo disappeared from his body, memories he had never seen before began flooding his mind like a torrent. In those memories, he sees himself in his current form, lying in a place completely unknown to him, while a soft hand holds his. It was in a strange place where the sounds of bells rang out as everyone watched him lying there. Eugene wonders in confusion about the identity of that woman who appeared in his memory laughing, then wonders with deeper doubt if these are his real memories at all. He possesses no memory of his past, and the only thing he remembers clearly is his name Eugene. His train of thought is interrupted by Robin's trembling voice calling him Sir Eugene. Eugene turns to find Robin pleading for help with panicked features, asking to be saved from the predicament he's in. Galfredik appears gripping Robin's neck tightly, scolding him with harsh playfulness, describing him as nothing but a heavy burden on Sir Eugene's shoulders. Robin screams, trying to defend himself, justifying his flight by saying Sir Eugene is not human and that any normal person would have fled to save their life in that situation. Galfredik becomes more enthusiastic and violent in training Robin, asking disapprovingly if he is calling Sir Eugene a monster now, while Eugene watches the scene coldly. Eugene goes back to thinking, confirming to himself that the only name he knows is Eugene, but recent events have birthed a certain intuition in him. He deduces that if he erases these tattoos one by one, just as happened just now, he might be able to uncover the hidden truth while Robin's screams for mercy continue in the background. Eugene stares with a determined eye, resolved to know who he really was. The scene shifts to Lord Tyen's room, where Eugene and Galfredik enter after Lord Tyen was informed they succeeded in suppressing the dungeon opening. Galfredik introduces himself respectfully to Lord Tyen, identifying himself as Karima, Galfredik's third son, expressing his honor at this meeting. Eugene steps forward in turn, bowing respectfully and introducing himself as Jan, the eldest son of the Eugene family. So Lord Tyen notes they have been through many hardships. The Lord orders his servant to give them the reward, explaining he was told Sir Eugene needs a certificate to prove his identity, though he sees little use for it. Eugene receives the certificate that will serve as a guarantee of his status as Jan of the Eugene family and thanks the Lord for it, while the fairy Miriam celebrates the plan's success. Suddenly, Lord Tyen is seized by a severe coughing fit, and his son, Kamara, rushes toward him anxiously, calling out to his father. Lord Tyen admits in a weak voice that his second son's ambition weighs so heavily on him that it prevents him from closing his eyes in peace. Kamara asks his father not to worry, promising him he will lead this territory, which his father spent his life building with all sincerity. The Lord holds his son's hand, giving him final advice that the territory is nothing but dust and dirt, and that a true lord must realize something more important. The Lord concludes his testament saying a leader must set his eyes not on the land, but on the people he leads, while Villet appears in the background listening intently to these words. Lord Tyen's hand slips slowly to fall lifeless, announcing the end of his life. Eugene contemplates the scene, noting that despite not deeply knowing the kind of person Lord Tyen was, a fair number of people are shedding tears sincerely over his departure. However, in the face of death itself, reactions are not always alike. Eugene catches a glimpse of the second son, Bertel's face, whose features are wrung by anger instead of sadness, revealing that feelings of grief are not shared by everyone. As the sun sets, Galfredik prepares to leave amidst the funeral ceremony, offering his apologies to Kamara for having to depart at this critical time, and Kamara understands, noting his knowledge of their busy schedule. Galfredik asks Eugene if he really intends to stay, to which Eugene answers with a serious look. Eugene explains he plans to visit the dungeon again, considering leaving now would be a waste of effort after the trouble they went through to open it. Galfredik smiles regretfully, noting that is unfortunate because Count Evergreo would have strongly desired to meet someone like Eugene. Suddenly, Galfredik extends his hand toward Eugene. With a broad smile, Galfredik expresses his great honor at being able to measure his strength against a powerful knight like Eugene, hoping they won't meet his enemies next time. Hands shake firmly in a moment of mutual recognition of strength and respect between warriors. Galfredik leaves riding his horse, while Robin bids him farewell, wishing him a safe journey, and Eugene orders Bardik to prepare for departure. Vilid is confused, reminding Eugene that he just said he would stay here, so Bardik asks him what Galfredik was riding when he left. Vilid answers simply that it was a horse, and Bardik points his finger indicating it's natural for a knight to ride a steed. Bardik laughs, explaining their plan to head to the Merchant Guild to sell monster products and buy a horse for Sir Eugene as well. Vilid's eyes shine with enthusiasm, announcing his understanding and swears to Eugene that as his squire, he will serve him with all his might. But Eugene shoots him a cold and scary look, telling him clearly that he won't need his help right now. Vilid is shocked and stunned, wondering in a faint voice what Eugene means by that. The scene shifts to the city of Marin, the largest trading city in the kingdom of Kalar, bustling with movement and life. Vilid appears carrying heavy boxes and sweating, while a worker yells at him to move quickly and not slack off. Amidst the crowd, Robin stands boasting to the masses, assuring them that a single knight brought all these dungeon materials, pointing to Sir Jan Eugene. The crowd buzzes with whispers and amazement, remembering rumors about the rookie knight who cleared the Tianan territory dungeon opening, and who was said to have ripped off a troll's head while it was still alive. Vilid puts down his load wearily while Robin yells at the merchant not to touch the goods. Outside, Vilid waits looking at the building, noting that the discussion inside is taking a long time. Inside, Eugene sits with Merchant Belmore from the Balan Merchant Guild, who confirms with excessive enthusiasm that he will take full responsibility for handling these materials. Eugene remembers his doubts when Bardik told him about knowing a good guild, while Belmore continues chattering about their guild's large size. Eugene thinks this will be very useful to him, given his ignorance of human social networks. Suddenly, a dignified man wearing a monocle storms into the room, pushing the door open forcefully and interrupting the conversation. While Merchant Belmore was offering Eugene the best shipping rates thanks to his experience, promising an exclusive contract, the imposing man asks sharply about Sir Eugene's identity. Bardik whispers to Eugene nervously that the situation has become a bit complicated, so Eugene asks him why. Bardik explains that this man is the secretary working under the deputy manager of the Balan Merchant Guild, meaning a big figure has intervened. Bardik continues his explanation, clarifying to Eugene that he is trying to exploit the situation to his advantage as Secretary Grail possesses greater bargaining power than Merchant Belmore, with whom they are trying to close the deal. He directs a veiled warning advice to Eugene, telling him that if he wants to secure a stable trading partner, he better act cautiously for now. Belmore tries to intervene and object, explaining he is in the middle of contracting with Eugene, but Grail pushes him in the face rudely with his hand to silence him, mocking the lack of any officially signed contract yet. Grail mentions rumors spreading from the port about a knight who ripped off a troll's head with his bare hands in Tianan territory and brought a mountain of dungeon materials, but he quickly dismisses that, considering spreading unverifiable rumors to inflate the value of goods a typical rookie strategy, and that he can expose these tricks easily. Grail announces arrogantly that the deputy manager of the Balan Merchant Guild wishes to sign the contract with Eugene personally and orders him to get up from this dilapidated place, describing him to himself as a rookie knight who knows only brute force and that he will strip him of everything. Suddenly, Grail's features change completely, and his eyes bulge with terror as he senses immense pressure emanating from Eugene. Eugene stares at him with a cold and terrifying look, making Grail feel the weight of the true power he is facing. Sweat pours from Grail's face, and he apologizes, stammering heavily for his rudeness, introducing himself formally this time as secretary to the deputy manager of Balan Guild, confirming this will be a great opportunity for Sir Eugene. Eugene asks him with complete coldness what this opportunity he speaks of is. Grail tries to explain in confusion that they offer better terms for materials, so Eugene interrupts him with a sharp look asking about these better terms. Grail's tension increases as he explains that the deputy manager personally will handle the matter, while Eugene stares at him with a glowing red eye. Grail collapses under the psychological pressure, apologizing profusely and confirming he didn't mean to commit any rudeness. Grail flees the room screaming apologies and promising to visit them next time, slamming the door shut behind him. Belmore looks at Eugene with tears streaming from his eyes. Touched, unable to believe Eugene rejected a contract with the deputy manager for his sake. Belmore pledges his full and unconditional support to Eugene from now on, which pleases Eugene to hear. Belmore gets excited and asks when to start the selling procedures. Eugene answers firmly that they will start immediately now, asking him to go out with him, which surprises Belmore. At the luxurious guild headquarters, Grail stands head bowed before the deputy manager, telling her Eugene rejected the offer, justifying his failure by saying Eugene wasn't an ordinary man as rumors say. The deputy manager asked him to raise his head, noting that knights often cause trouble for merchants to maintain their honor or face. She smiles maliciously, confirming that as merchants, they possess money and goods, so it won't be difficult for them to bother Eugene in their own way. The deputy manager looks out the window towards Eugene standing in the street, describing him as a poor knight who doesn't even own a decent horse. She orders Grail to go and give Sir Eugene a gift, confirming it will be a gift so valuable that a broke knight like him cannot refuse. Back to Eugene. The boy, Viliad, is shocked when Eugene asks him to stay and sell materials. Eugene confirms his order strictly, asking him to continue selling monster materials he brings to this man, Belmore. Viliad asks with sadness and confusion why he must stay behind again. He wonders if it's because of his lack of skill needed to follow Sir Eugene, expressing readiness to start sword training immediately. Eugene interrupts him with a direct question about the role of a squire. Viliad answers enthusiastically that his role is helping the knight he serves in combat and daily life, and Eugene agrees. Eugene explains to him calmly with a meaningful look that his job now is helping Eugene in his daily life as his squire, meaning completing commercial tasks. Eugene defines the task clearly to his follower, Viliad, ordering him to sell materials he brought from battle to raise necessary funds, and ask him to discuss details with merchant Belmore, who will teach him the basics of business. Eugene leaves, telling him Belmore will be a good teacher for him in this field. Viliad realizes deep down the truth that without Sir Eugene, he would have been dead long ago, so complaining about a simple task like this would be shameful. Eugene notices the boy's thinking, so he offers him an extra incentive, promising that once some money is collected, he will seriously consider teaching him sword arts. Eugene adds with a look towards him that the time will come someday when Viliad will help him in his battles as his true squire. Viliad's eyes shine with enthusiasm and gratitude, and he places his hand on his chest, announcing his acceptance of Sir Eugene's order with all sincerity. Eugene leaves the shop afterwards, but finds himself completely broke after buying minimal equipment, wondering in amazement how money disappears so quickly. The fairy Marion flies around him grumbling, complaining her wallet became empty, making her heart feel empty too, and asks him urgently if they can earn money again quickly. Eugene stops suddenly in front of a display window, staring at a shiny armor. Bardic looks admiringly at the full-plate armor, describing it as every knight's romance. So Eugene asks him, surprised if by romance he means it's expensive. Bardic answers it's not just about price, but it's a costly item even rich knight families inherit for generations. Suddenly, contemplation is interrupted by a scream calling him boss. Robin appears running with panicked features, announcing the appearance of a massive horde of wandering monsters on the outskirts of Marin City. Rabin explains those monsters are coming from the eastern forest trying to storm the city, and existing guilds can barely hold them off. Bardic suggests to Eugene that it's better for them to participate in this subjugation operation, so Eugene asks him coldly for the reason driving him to that. Rabin explains the reason with extreme enthusiasm, taking a fighting stance, clarifying that unlike clearing dungeons that have an owner, subduing wandering monsters incurs no commission fees. He adds eagerly that Marin City is a city of merchants overflowing with capital, making it the perfect place to sell monster materials and loot at an excellent price without transport costs. Rabin approaches them, eyes bloodshot with greed, summarizing it in one phrase, it's huge money. Eugene's features change immediately upon hearing the word money, and he issues his order to move immediately without hesitation. As they are about to leave, someone blocks their way screaming, asking them to wait, turning out to be Secretary Grail. Grail stands panting heavily beside a horse, asking tiredly why everyone is running so fast. Grail announces proudly he came to deliver a war horse as a gift sent by the deputy manager personally. Grail showcases the horse's amazing specifications, pointing to its silky black fur and dense muscles that look sculpted, confirming it's a thoroughbred steed of high lineage. Eugene is surprised, wondering if the deputy manager sent this specifically for him. Grail notices that scary look in Eugene's eyes again, so he steps back in fear, confirming stammeringly they want nothing in return. Eugene ignores the secretary's tension and strides towards the horse, while Grail tries to emphasize the gift is just a simple token of their sincere intentions. Eugene mounts the steed gracefully and asks Grail to convey his thanks to his mistress, while the secretary looks at him in amazement. Eugene takes off on the horse with tremendous speed while Miriam screams with overwhelming happiness, inviting him to go collect money. Robin and Bartek stand stunned by the horse's speed, and Robin wonders what they should do now that the leader beat them to it. Bartek screams at Robin, ordering him to run and catch up, while Grail remains standing in place watching their departure silently. In the forest located on the eastern outskirts of Marin City, a bloody battle rages between humans and a group of savage goblins. Suddenly, sound of horse hooves pierces the forest silence as Eugene appears riding his new black steed, trampling goblins in his path mercilessly. Eugene wields his sword with high skill, severing heads of monsters blocking his way while blood scatters everywhere announcing his arrival. Miriam realizes immediately upon seeing the massive goblin numbers that the attack scale is much larger than expected, guessing Marin Guild members repelling the attack at the front likely perished. A cold and determined look paints Eugene's face, considering this situation works perfectly in his favor. He dashes with his horse piercing through the forest, driven by a clear selfish desire. He possesses no hobby of sharing loot with others, so he decides to claim everything for himself. The steed's hooves strike the ground forcefully as he advances toward the heart of battle with lightning speed. From a distance, Eugene spots a blonde knight fighting fiercely amidst a crowd of goblins trying to repel their desperate attack. The knight screams in the monsters' faces, calling them demons, swearing they won't advance one more step except over his dead body. But numbers overcome courage as his horse stumbles and falls, throwing him into the midst of enemies. The knight coughs trying to get up, declaring proudly he is a righteous knight swearing by the name of Marin. But his courage evaporates suddenly when he finds himself surrounded by goblins from all sides, and his features turn to pure terror. He screams at the top of his lungs, asking for help and rescue from the certain death staring at him. At the critical moment, Eugene's sword descends like a thunderbolt, splitting the goblin about to kill him in two. Eugene storms the siege with his horse, waving his sword with lightning speed to slaughter the rest of the monsters surrounding him. Goblin limbs scatter in the air, while the knight looks in amazement at his savior appearing from nowhere. Eugene continues fighting skillfully, pushing danger away from him and widening the safety circle. The knight smiles a strange smile, admitting he owes him a big debt, asking his name amidst the chaos. But before he answers, another goblin surprises him with a treacherous attack, so Eugene intervenes again to save the situation. Eugene asks him coldly if knowing his name is important right now, noting their death here would make everything meaningless. The knight bursts into hysterical laughter, acknowledging the truth of his words, and his crazed fighting spirit returns. He rises again, threatening the goblins, confirming he will ask his name again if they survive this living hell. It was a fierce battle at the gates of the great merchant city, Moran, where hundreds of goblins poured in like ants, but the defenders fought to the last breath. In moments of life and death, that knight was cutting down goblins mercilessly, while the blonde knight fought by his side. In the end, their efforts were crowned with victory, and they managed to defend the city. After the battle ended, people in the city wondered curiously about the identity of that unknown knight who saved them. The blonde knight reveals his name to the public proudly, announcing he is Jan Eugene. The crowd buzzes with whispers and admiration, passing around stories of his heroics and how he ripped out a living troll's spine, considering him their new hero. Cheers rise with the name Jan Eugene throughout the city, while a man with red hair and a thick beard watches the scene from a high window. Louis Valen, former representative of the Marin City Mayor's Guild, mutters words bearing an ominous warning, noting that the more Eugene's fame grows, the harder it becomes to deal with and control him. Louis Valen asks his granddaughter, Priscilla, anxiously if she is sure leaving things as they are is a safe action, to which she answers with complete confidence that everything is still within controllable limits. Priscilla smiles a sly smile, explaining to her grandfather she hoped Lord Eugene's fame would spread more and more, reasoning that the higher a knight's fame, the more he fears losing that status. She asks her grandfather if she knew about the heir accompanying Eugene, so Louis confirms his knowledge, noting it is the child Eugene is selling monster products to the guild in his name. Priscilla reveals a dangerous truth she reached to her grandfather. That child is an illegitimate and hidden son of the family, which surprises Louis, who immediately realizes the dimensions of this discovery. Priscilla concludes that whatever Eugene's goal, he seeks to earn huge money here to support the Tion family child. She adds intelligently that if they maintain their closeness to these two, they might be able to build a strong relationship with the person who might become the next head of the Tion family in the future. Louis laughs loudly, admiring his granddaughter's plan, relying on buying the loyalty and support of the knight protecting that illegitimate child. Louis decides as mayor of Marin City, he must send a valuable gift to Lord Eugene, rewarding the hero who rid them of the wandering monster headache. He tells his granddaughter he will put her name as the recommender of that gift so she can benefit from it in cementing her relationship with him, so Priscilla thanks him gratefully. Priscilla sips tea calmly, thinking of an ancient wisdom saying, "A thirsty person always goes to water." Priscilla plans to dig the well and wait patiently while she hears footsteps approaching the room. She watches the door with piercing eyes, determined to wait until they drink from the water she sells without any resistance or doubt. Priscilla welcomes her guest with a broad smile, describing him as the hero who saved Marin City. Eugene enters the room wearing new armor. Eugene tells her he came to offer thanks to her as deputy manager of Valen Guild, so Priscilla invites him to sit politely. While drinking tea, she contemplates his features secretly, marveling that someone with such handsome appearance possesses the strength to rip off a troll's head. Priscilla realizes deep down he is completely different from any knight she met before. Priscilla praises the armor he wears, noting it fits him perfectly, and explains the mayor gifted it and she supervised commissioning it at the finest workshop in Moran. She explains the armor's specs made of special steel blending Elsic iron and ghoul bones, making it strong enough that dragon fangs cannot penetrate it easily. She asks his opinion on the armor, so Eugene answers coldly that thanks to this armor, the next dungeon raid will be safer. Eugene also expresses appreciation for the excellent accommodation and meals provided, noting his mercenaries look better thanks to that, and he expects greater results. Priscilla smiles maliciously, expressing happiness the gifts pleased him, and he assures her he will show gratitude for this goodwill. Priscilla tries to seize the opportunity to offer him a practical proposal, but Eugene interrupts her suddenly by standing, announcing he is busy and must go. Priscilla is stunned by his sudden departure, so Eugene tells her as he moves to leave that once the Tion family dungeon raid is complete, that amount of matters can be accomplished. Without turning to her, Eugene clarifies a crucial point. His current contract is limited only to dungeon byproducts for this time, meaning this might be their last farewell. Priscilla bites her lip in extreme anger while Eugene adds coldly, "We'll focus now on collecting magic stones." As Eugene walks away, Priscilla screams, suddenly asking him to wait. Eugene stops and turns to her while Priscilla asks him in a serious tone if they have more to discuss. Eugene looks at her with the corner of his glowing red eye, asking coldly what she means. Priscilla drops the mask of kindness, telling him with a sharp and direct look that there are limits to pretending not to notice, revealing her true intentions in the confrontation. Priscilla lists the lavish gifts she has bestowed, the most expensive full-plate armor in Marin, a purebred war horse, luxury hotel stays, and gourmet meals for the mercenaries, pointing out that the dungeon byproducts Eugene sold to the guild don't even cover half the cost. She fixes him with a sharp glare, asking if he never learned as a child that everything has a price, implying that he is deeply in their debt. She continues to press him, questioning if he is an impudent knight with no sense of honor, who wouldn't care if the citizens of Marin, who now deify him, discovered he was merely exploiting the situation. She mockingly calls him the hero of Marin, Lord Eugene, while he shoots her a cold dark side eye. Priscilla challenges him, asking if he simply plans to take everything and leave, daring him to talk his way out of this if he can. But Eugene's reaction defies all her expectations. He lets out a terrifying mocking smile, describing her attempt as amusing. Eugene turns the tables on her, pointing out that she is the one who summons people at her whim, forces unwanted gifts upon them, and then demands payment for those very gifts. His eye glows crimson red as he steps closer, calling her merely a merchant, trying to intimidate him in this moment. A heavy silence and suffocating tension fill the room. Everyone, including Bardic and Belmore, is stunned by the sheer pressure radiating from him, while sweat pours down Priscilla's face. Eugene states his position sternly before she can misunderstand further, confirming that he has already signed a contract with the Balan Merchant Guild through Belmore. And as long as they buy his goods fairly, he doesn't care what the people of Marin whisper behind his back. He throws her words back at her, saying everything has a price, and tells her to chatter as she pleases. He looks at her with a direct threat, warning her that as the deputy manager of the guild, she will soon learn exactly what it means to pay that price. Eugene continues his verbal assault, remarking that her actions make it seem as if the Balan Guild is conspiring with the city of Marin to trap the knight who saved them. He delivers a final threat. If this persists, he doubts any knight will bother to step up the next time Marin faces danger, declaring that he is finished here and leaving. Bardic intervenes with a sly smile, apologizing to the deputy manager with mock regret for the turn of events. Priscilla realizes the gravity of her mistake, thinking that if she had approached this differently, they could have built a powerful partnership. Belmore looks at her nervously, and she realizes she has completely lost control of the situation. Just before Eugene exits the room, Priscilla calls out to him with a trembling voice, begging him to wait. Priscilla bows deeply, hand over her heart, admitting she acted insolently and offering her deepest apologies to Sir Eugene. She acknowledges that her greed for influence over him blinded her judgment, expressing sincere remorse for her lack of respect and asking for a fresh start. She offers a compromise. Keep the contract with Belmore as is, with one added clause ensuring the concerns Sir Eugene carries will never manifest. Priscilla contemplates Eugene secretly, realizing she has seen many knights crawl on their bellies the moment someone dangles luxury sponsorship before them. Most chase money and fame like fools, but she is certain this man is entirely different. He is far too dangerous to toy with. Her instincts as a merchant tell her she cannot afford to lose him no matter what happens. Eugene stops and looks at her, telling her he can at least listen to what she has to say. However, he casts a sharp warning glance, conditioning that whatever she says must be worth his time. Priscilla smiles gratefully, thanking him for showing mercy and granting her another chance. Later, Eugene appears riding his new horse while the fairy, Miriam, flies around him, admiring his look and saying that, even if it's just for show, he looks magnificent. Miriam fawns over her master, calling him the greatest in the world, while Bardic remarks with a broad smile that Eugene has secured an excellent contract. Eugene agrees, while Bardic points out that the Balan Merchant Guild runs a massive operation that cannot be ignored with headquarters in Marin and hundreds of branches across the Roman Empire. Bardic points to a map explaining that trading with nobles who rule demonic realms like the Tion family is of vital importance. He adds admiringly that a merchant guild of this size offering unrestricted access to any dungeon or maze connected to their branches is an extraordinary proposal, honestly considering this offer far better than official support from a noble family. Bardic praises Eugene's negotiation skills as incredible, but Eugene replies with an annoyed expression that the funny thing is he only said all that earlier because he was irritated by the situation. Their conversation is cut off by someone appearing before them. A coarse voice mocks Eugene and his new armor, asking if wearing shiny plates makes one a knight. A massive bald mercenary appears, sneering at Eugene's pretty face and doubting his ability to hold a sword correctly. Eugene looks at him with cold contempt, while Miriam describes him as a man who looks like a potato talking nonsense. Kamara appears at that moment, welcoming their perfectly timed arrival. Eugene calls him Lord Tyan, but Kamara modestly asks him to speak freely as before, noting the significant change in Eugene in such a short time. Eugene asks about the current situation, and Kamara informs him that his brother has not backed down. Instead, he has hired new mercenaries, though Kamara feels something is suspicious this time. Eugene mentions the mercenaries his brother previously hired to kidnap Viliad, who were a corrupt bunch. Eugene scrutinizes the new mercenaries, noting they reek of the same foul scent as their predecessors. Kamara formally asked Eugene to lead this dungeon raid as the commander. The bald mercenary rudely interrupts, directing his words to Kamara and asking if he will become the next leader if Eugene dies inside the dungeon. Kamara and the knights are stunned by this reckless talk. The mercenary justifies his insolence, saying he doesn't enjoy saying it, but they aren't on a picnic. The dungeon is a place where lives are cheaper than flies, so they must prepare for the worst. The mercenary grins maliciously, baring his teeth, and expresses his anticipation of working with Commander Eugene. Eugene replies coldly, agreeing with the idea and telling him that if he dies, he can indeed become the leader, calling him Baldy, which enrages the mercenary, while Eugene orders everyone to move. Miriam flies quickly toward Eugene, warning him about that man, but Eugene reassures her that he has his eyes on him. Eugene realizes this is just another scheme by Bertel, who intends to use these mercenaries to get rid of him inside the dungeon. As they advance into the darkness, Eugene thinks that watching Bertel's plans crumble before his eyes will be quite entertaining, and a terrifying demonic smile appears on his face. Murian is shown laughing like a villain once she realizes what Eugene intends to do. Eugene charges forward, beginning to shred monsters with supreme skill. Limbs fly everywhere as Eugene carves a path without stopping. The bald mercenary watches the scene in shock, admitting to himself that the rumors of Eugene's strength were not exaggerated. The mercenary notices that Eugene leads the charge from the front, doing the work of 100 men alone, while the mercenaries just hang back. He describes Eugene as a massive shield paving the way and protecting them from attacks. The bald mercenary grinds his teeth in frustration, realizing he needs to wait for the right moment. He has a poison-coated blade where a single scratch would end Eugene's life, but he finds no gap in his defense. Eugene stops suddenly before a dark entrance, announcing that beyond this point, only mid-rank monsters appear, and he can no longer guarantee their safety. So let only those who wish to follow him do so. Eugene turns to them with a sharp look and a glowing eye, repeating his warning, only follow him if they are confident in their ability to keep up. The bald mercenary shouts at his comrades, asking how they can stay behind while the commander goes alone, declaring to himself that this is his golden opportunity to execute his plan. The other mercenaries decide to follow him enthusiastically, while Bardic and Robin choose to stay back and monitor the situation carefully. Bardic notices that Sir Eugene seems to be planning something different this time. At that moment, Eugene remembers the last time he entered this dungeon with the powerful knight Galferdich, admitting to himself that it's not fun at all without him. He recalls the image of Galferdich as an exceptional leader, how he raised his soldiers' morale in critical moments and took the most dangerous tasks upon himself. Eugene thinks regretfully that if Galferdich were here, they might have cleared this dungeon even with this pathetic group of mercenaries. Eugene wonders curiously how Galferdich would have acted in a situation like this. Suddenly, Eugene stops the charade, coldly declaring that he will drop his clumsy acting now. He tells the mercenaries who followed him that if they want to die, they should proceed as they please. Miriam appears before them, causing the mercenaries to panic in shock, wondering what this creature is. Miriam unleashes a barrage of water magic attacks. The mercenaries scream at each other to dodge the lethal strikes. Chaos erupts as one screams that the monster is using magic, while cries of pain and confusion rise amidst the darkness and smoke. Amidst this hell, the bald mercenary screams at his comrade, calling him a fool and demanding he stop pushing before he accidentally cuts him with his sword. But Eugene begins killing the mercenaries one by one, while another mercenary screams that he can't see anything. The sounds of battle and the clashing of swords rise, and the bald leader screams at his men to counterattack. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries notices something terrifying, screaming and asking if that person is truly their ally. Screams of pain and horror rise. Someone screams that his leg has been severed. Eugene appears in the darkness, his eyes glowing crimson, slaughtering everyone indiscriminately, whether monster or human. The bald mercenary finds himself alone and surrounded. He tries to use a magic stone for light, cursing the darkness he didn't expect. He tries to pull his men together, screaming for them to stay together, but absolute silence is the only answer, which triggers his terror as he wonders in bewilderment why he can hear no sound. Eugene approaches the mercenary leader and asks him if he needs a little light. He addresses him coldly, saying he seems to be in trouble and offering him a helping hand. Eugene asks him with terrifying sarcasm if he can see clearly now. The bald mercenary realizes the terrifying truth. He no longer knows who is the hunter and who is the prey in this place. He looks ahead in horror while Eugene smiles a savage smile, baring his fangs. The mercenary whispers a single word expressing his absolute terror. "You monster." Later, Kamara bursts into Eugene's room eagerly, calling for him. Kamara asks in shock and disbelief if the news he heard is true. Kamara and his brother Bertel reached the site of the commotion only to be surprised by the mercenary maverick lying on the ground in a pathetic state covered in blood. Bertel cries out in bewilderment as he looks at the man who was supposed to be strong, calling his name in shock. Maverick raises his face, full of terror and despair, admitting in a trembling voice that he tried to kill Jan Eugene. Before Bertel can comprehend, Maverick adds the shocking truth, confirming that it was at the direct instigation of Bertel Teon, causing Bertel to break into a sweat and try to salvage the situation, claiming the man has completely lost his mind. Kamara screams at his brother in rage, asking him how far he intends to go. Bertel replies sharply, trying to evade, demanding his brother wake up and not believe the words of a madman. Bertel approaches the prone Maverick with a clear, threatening look, ordering him to stop raving and speak clearly. At that moment, a terrifying internal struggle rages in Maverick's mind. His eyes glow a strange red as he wonders in horror how he dared to try and harm the master, revealing he is under the influence of magic or supernatural fear. Suddenly, Maverick screams that he is useless and deserves to die, then rushes toward the window amidst the shock of Bertel, who tries to stop him. Maverick throws himself from the heights. Maverick falls and is impaled by one of the statues. Kamara and the others look from the balcony in horror at Maverick's corpse. Bertel immediately exploits the situation, pointing out that the man clearly went insane after seeing people torn like paper before the monsters, trying to convince his brother that believing this nonsense is strange. But Kamara notices something terrifying in his brother's features. Instead of shock, Bertel's face shows relief at the death of the only witness, increasing his suspicion. Bertel tries to turn the tables, directing his anger toward Eugene, accusing him of fabricating these delusions and ridiculous persecution against him, questioning his pride as a knight. Eugene intervenes with total coldness, interrupting Bertel's shouting, and asks with a sharp look if he is truly innocent on his honor as a knight. Bertel replies with tension and suppressed rage in the affirmative. Then Eugene plays his trump card, declaring that since Bertel is betting his honor and truth as a knight, he formally requests a trial by combat to settle the matter. Bertel is stunned and enraged by this sudden request that backs him into a corner. Soon rumors spread through the castle as the sun sets. Everyone talks about the trial by combat being held by the second young master in the front courtyard because of his hiring of an assassin. Maids and soldiers whisper about Bertel crossing the line this time, wondering who the target was. Eugene appears in full combat gear in the center of the courtyard, while everyone realizes the target was the knight the Lord recently hired, Sir Jan Eugene. Bertel stands on the opposite side, gripping his sword, his features reflecting a mix of rage and tension. The referee announces loudly that since the parties' claims conflict so strongly, the truth will be determined through a duel, and the truth shall follow the will of the Lord. Eugene draws his sword calmly, while the referee declares that victory will belong to the truthful one. The battle begins, and Bertel charges with a powerful frontal attack. Eugene blocks the attack skillfully, and swords clash forcefully in the center of the square. Sparks fly with every strike as Bertel attacks savagely, trying to end things quickly. Bertel presses with all his might, the strain of violent effort showing on his face as he tries to break Eugene's defense. Suddenly, begins to remember his past life when Bertel was screaming at the top of his lungs, announcing he found the vampire and demanding to inform the Holy Knight, Sir Lim Deerheight, immediately. Eugene seethes with rage internally, mocking the fact that he was chased for over 10 years by someone of such weak caliber. A violent confrontation erupts. Swords clash powerfully, sparks flying in the air while shock colors Bertel's face as he finds himself unable to match his opponent's speed. Eugene presses with a sweeping attack, delivering a powerful blow that makes Bertel stagger and cry out in pain. Attacks follow with lightning speed. Eugene blocks Bertel's strikes with complete ease and then counters with a thrust that knocks him off balance. Bertel's sword falls from his hand. Eugene stands over him with a cold, terrifying look, contemptuously ordering him to pick up his sword and continue the fight, while Bertel trembles with humiliation and pain. Eugene analyzes his opponent's skills, admitting that Bertel's swordsmanship was not bad in itself. But the difference in power was obvious this time, so much so that even the commoners who knew nothing of dueling realized it. Jan Eugene was overwhelmingly and destructively stronger compared to the Lord's brother. Eugene swings his sword and severs Bertel's hand. Suddenly, Kamara shouts at the top of his lungs, ordering a halt. Eugene turns toward Kamara with an annoyed look. He tells Kamara to stay back, declaring the duel is not over yet. But Kamara quickly explains his intention, declaring that he cannot stand and watch his brother die. Since Bertel has become unable to fight and can no longer prove his claim, the winner is Sir Jan Eugene. Bertel kneels on the ground bleeding, refusing defeat and screaming insanely that he can still fight and will tear that bastard's neck himself. Kamara interrupts him firmly, telling him to stop because the result has already been decided. Kamara asks his brother to confess his sin as a knight and accept the punishment of imprisonment instead of death. Bertel completely loses his mind, screaming at his brother to shut up, asking what he did to deserve this. Then he directs his crazed rage toward Eugene, screaming his name. Bertel blames him bitterly, saying that if he hadn't appeared in his life, he wouldn't have to suffer all this humiliation and shame. In a moment of madness, Bertel tries to attack again, but Eugene moves with lightning speed. Bertel wonders in bewilderment why his body won't respond to him. His head falls to the ground. He sees his body lying there, realizing in horror what happened. Eugene severed his neck with a single strike. He stands over him coldly, saying sharply that he should have seized the last chance his brother gave him. Eugene leaves the square, leaving behind the defeated Bertil amidst everyone's shock. Kamara looks sorrowfully at his brother lying on the ground, calling him a fool. Later, Eugene walks through the castle corridors, and Miriam asks him if what he did was a waste. Eugene asked what she means, and she clarifies she's talking about the mercenary Maverick, noting that he turned him into a thrall vampire and then simply got rid of him. Eugene explains that wasn't exactly the case. The man was mentally weak and couldn't handle the transformation properly. If he left him alive, it would have been easy to discover he had become a vampire. Eugene asserts that Maverick was just a convenient disposable tool to drag Bertil into a trial by combat. Eugene asks her coldly if she truly thinks he would spare the life of someone who bared fangs at him. Miriam remarks that this is expected of a vampire without blood or tears. Miriam argues that a vampire should possess countless slaves as a symbol of power, but Eugene briefly replies that he doesn't need them. So she mocks him, saying he understands nothing of style. Eugene opens the door slowly, thinking that turning weaklings into subordinates requires too much cleanup effort later, wishing there was at least one person he liked. He remembers one person who gained his admiration and hears a voice inside the room wondering what happened to Galfordic. Eugene barges into the room where Priscilla is sitting with Belmore, and Priscilla asks Belmore about when Galfordic entered. So he answers her nervously that things are chaotic right now, but explains that 2 weeks have already passed. Belmore and Priscilla are shocked to see Eugene suddenly before them. Belmore warmly welcomes Sir Eugene, congratulating him on his success in subduing the dungeon this time as well, so Eugene returns the greeting curtly. Eugene gets straight to the point, asking anxiously about what happened to Sir Galfordic. Priscilla tells him with serious features that Galfordic participated 2 weeks ago in subduing a maze in Count Evergrove's territory. She adds the shocking news that he went missing alone inside that maze and that they combed the entire mid-rank monster area but found no trace of him, suggesting one possibility. She concludes with regret that he was unable to return from the high-rank monster area. The scene shifts to a luxurious palace where an elegant man welcomes Eugene, noting that he heard many rumors about him and that he looks younger and more handsome than expected. Eugene thanks his host Lord Giffian for the warm welcome, but reminds him of the current situation. Giffian Evergrow, the eldest son of the Evergrow family, invites him inside. Giffian explains with regret that Sir Galfordic's ambition crossed the line a bit as they planned to grant him a title if he succeeded in this subjugation, but they never imagined he would enter the upper floors alone. Eugene is stunned, repeating alone in disbelief. Giffian confirms the matter, explaining that the upper floors Galfridic entered are areas the Evergrow family hasn't been able to touch for over 100 years. He adds in a low voice that that area is the residence of the so-called Maze Master. Another person explains that the Maze Master is not just a resident, but an entity controlling the entire maze. That person continues his explanation, pointing out that Galfredic, blinded by greed to earn merit, made a reckless move that caused trouble for many. Giffian introduces that man, identifying him as Sir Lugatz, one of the territory knights who led the subjugation with Galfredic back then. Lugatz greets Eugene with a sly smile, noting he heard rumors about him defeating Galfredic in a duel and observing an unexpected resemblance between them. Lugatz announces arrogantly that he is the champion of the Evergrow tournament, implying he defeated Galfredic in that tournament too, and thus they share this in common. Eugene asks him coldly if that is really important right now. Giffian ignores his annoyance, explaining that this only proves how valuable Sir Galfredic is to them too, and apologizes with fake sincerity for the incident. Eugene asks about Galfredic's current fate, noting that Eugene and Galfredic were very close friends. While Eugene mutters internally cursing this bastard, Giffian intervenes seriously, promising Eugene full support as a friend who traveled all this distance and asked him to listen carefully. Giffian explains that their family tried to explore the maze's upper floors many times over the last 100 years, but the result was always everyone disappearing. For this reason, their policy dictates ending the search and declaring dead anyone who disappears for more than a month. Giffian asks Eugene if he understands the situation, noting that 3 weeks have passed since Galfordic's disappearance, and if he isn't found within the remaining week, there will be no hope. Eugene stands up, immediately announcing he will set off right now. So Giffian tries to calm him down, explaining the maze isn't a place one can simply enter like a town square. Giffian tells Eugene seriously that Sir Lugatz will prepare the entire subjugation team in just 3 days. He advises him to take some rest until that time comes, while Eugene remains silent for a moment thinking about it. Eugene agrees and thanks Jiffian, but Jiffian adds that he has one final request. He tells him he recently hired a witch and asks to include her to assist him in the mission, confirming she will be very useful. The scene shifts to the city streets where Miriam grumbles furiously about Lugats, describing him as a pointy-headed fool with terrible manners. She fumes with anger, screaming that they might look like they are missing a few screws, but they are actually great entities, threatening to burn his huge nose with fire while Eugene looks ahead, coldly ignoring her chatter. Eugene sinks into deep thought, feeling that many things don't add up logically, recalling Galfredic's words before they parted. Eugene clearly remembers when Galfredic told him he was going to receive his official appointment from Count Evergrow once the maze campaign succeeded, and invited him then to accompany him to introduce his face. Eugene wonders in confusion. Galfredic had confirmed getting the title and was heading to the Evergrow territory for this purpose. So why was he suddenly assigned to another maze campaign? Eugene is certain that the man he knows well wouldn't act recklessly driven by greed, and that if he were really going, he would have formed a proper team and advanced with extreme caution. But suddenly, his train of thought is cut by the sound of commotion and screaming indicating something. Eugene turns to see a masked man shouting to the crowds, preaching that the Messiah will descend upon them. The man continues his passionate sermon, warning of a day when a red shadow falls on the moon, which will incur the goddess of victory's wrath and drive her to destroy this land. The man announces the disaster has already begun, pointing to the frequent tremors near the maze that caused monsters to die in droves. He adds a piece of information that piques Eugene's interest, which is that a skilled knight went missing inside recently. So Miriam whispers to Eugene that this matches exactly what those weirdos at the palace said. The man screams, demanding people sprinkle fresh calf blood at the gate and offer leftover meat as a sacrifice. He promises them the Messiah will descend afterwards to save this blood-stained land, while someone wonders in surprise if this is a religious cult. Marion feels confused by their talk, while Eugene notices with his intuition that this village's atmosphere is not normal at all. One of the followers approaches Eugene and slips a leaflet into his hand, warning him of divine wrath and inviting him to believe before it's too late. Eugene reads the leaflet talking about monster deaths due to earthquakes near the maze, wondering if part of the maze has collapsed. Eugene deduces monsters might be escaping through cracks, but wonders, if that's the case, why did Galfredich disappear? Eugene makes a sudden decision, ordering Marion to prepare to head to the maze immediately, which surprises her. Eugene declares firmly that 3 days is too long to wait and that he will get ahead of everyone and start the search himself, threatening to wipe out everything in his path. Suddenly, a mysterious voice appears from behind him, expressing surprise at seeing a vampire in this place. Eugene is shocked, and his eyes widen in surprise. A mysterious person wearing a cloak appears, smiling maliciously and mocking that he thought vampires on this continent were nearly extinct thanks to the Holy Knights campaigns. The man addresses Eugene, daringly wondering how he walks freely in broad daylight so simply. While the preacher screaming about the Messiah's arrival continues in the background, Eugene grabs that person and drags him away from the crowd, then he pins him forcefully against the wall. Eugene holds him tightly, asking him with a terrifying look to reveal his identity and how he managed to recognize him immediately. Eugene presses on the man's neck, pushing him against the wall, threatening to break his neck if he doesn't speak, while the other chokes and asks him to let go so he can talk. Under the pressure of the choking grip, the mysterious person speaks with great difficulty, admitting in a broken voice that he belongs to Blood Shadows. The fairy Miriam's hearing picks up this name, feeling strangely familiar with it, and suddenly screams in shock when she remembers the truth of that name. Miriam rushes towards Eugene quickly, screaming at him to stop immediately and preventing him from killing this person. Miriam tells him with a voice filled with panic that this person is a mage, which shocks Eugene. She explains quickly that these are Blood Shadows mages, a lineage that has served vampires for long generations. And while she is explaining, the mage loses consciousness completely from strangulation, so Miriam comments with regret that she passed out. Moments later, the witch regains consciousness and screams at Eugene in anger, scolding him for his direct attack without understanding, asking how she was supposed to answer while his hand was crushing her throat. Eugene apologizes, stammering with embarrassment, while Miriam defends him, pointing out that the witch was the one who spoke with an evil tone at first. The witch calms down a bit and introduces herself formally, revealing her name is Serenoa Serenoa. Serenoa explains she is from the Blood Shadow School, mages who serve vampires, and due to their nature, can sense vampires' presence immediately, expressing her honor to meet a descendant of the Dark Clans. She adds she was actually looking for him at young Master Jifian's request, so Eugene realizes she is the witch Jifian mentioned earlier. Serenoa continues saying Jifian told her that Eugene and Sir Galfordic share a very deep bond, which annoys Eugene, who vows internally to sew Galfordic's mouth shut when he sees him. Serenoa reveals her real reason for being there, which is that she was also present during that exploration campaign. She tells him she was there the moment Sir Galfordic went missing, so Eugene asks her eagerly to tell him everything that happened. Serenoa starts telling the story, explaining she volunteered in Count Evergrow's campaign because she needed monster materials. She notes that Evergrow Maze is known for its danger, but since it was discovered 100 years ago, and most areas were cleared except the upper floors, everyone felt relatively safe while advancing. But as they went deeper inside, the entire maze shook from a loud and sudden earthquake. Serenoa describes the moment of terror when the ground she stood on collapsed and how she was on the verge of falling into the abyss. And at that critical moment, Sir Galfredic, who was guarding the rear, intervened, saving her only to fall instead of her. She remembers clearly his scream as he fell, calling her a fool and warning of the danger of the door down below, admitting she survived thanks to him. Serenoa explains that everyone, except her, believed the earthquake happened because Sir Galfredic opened the upper floor gate. And since she owes him her life, she felt it was her duty to at least tell his close friend, Sir Eugene, the truth. Serenoa admits she never imagined Eugene would be a vampire, making Jifian's story seem inconsistent with reality. Eugene wonders to himself if Jifian lied to him or if the story was distorted in the middle. Serenoa interrupts his thoughts with terrifying additional information, telling him she saw something down there. She reveals she saw a huge eye in the abyssal depths where Galfredic fell. Eugene is stunned, wondering what that eye was, so Serenoa confirms what she saw. Serenoa reminds him of the leaflets the strange cult followers were distributing in the square earlier. She points out that the eye she saw in the maze looks exactly like the drawing on that leaflet, while cult followers are shown performing their rituals. In a horrific closing scene, the priest screams demanding blood and meat as offerings while a person is sacrificed on the altar to welcome the savior they claim will lead them to salvation. In the pitch darkness, a man's face appears smiling evilly, muttering mysterious words suggesting something will rise and ascend soon. In broad daylight, the square bustles with movement and activity as workers move food supply barrels, while someone announces preparations are complete and mercenary volunteers and Templar knights have gathered, confirming readiness for immediate deployment. Eugene stands amidst the alert crowds in front of the huge maze gate, and Lugatz asks him if he is excited about the idea of meeting his close friend. He expresses hope they won't end up carrying his friend's corpse back, but Eugene corrects him, confirming that Galfredic is not the type to die easily. Suddenly, Lugatz laughs loudly, shouting that Sir Galfredic is a very reliable person. Eugene thinks to himself that if it were up to him, he would have entered this maze a long time ago. But deep down, while recalling the image of the mysterious eye symbol, Eugene realizes Galfredic's disappearance wasn't just a simple accident, deciding he must watch this man closely. Eugene recalls his memories with Galfredic, telling himself his friend lasted 3 weeks, so surely he can last another 3 days. His train of thought is cut off by the appearance of a group of masked men greeting him respectfully, which surprises him. The men introduce themselves as Templar knights from the monastery belonging to Evergrove territory, expressing their great honor to be with a pious and devout knight like Sir Eugene. Their leader continues praising, noting they were deeply touched by his readiness to face danger for a friend and invites him to fight together in the name of God, while Miriam whispers with stinging sarcasm at the idea of describing a vampire as pious. So Eugene answers them coldly, asking them to do their best. As Eugene walks away, Lugatz comments sarcastically on the situation, noting it's rare for Templar knights who follow God's orders to care about an ordinary knight. Lugatz takes the opportunity to joke, suggesting he change his class later to Holy Knight, so Eugene imagines with sarcasm the title Vampire Holy Knight. Eugene's look changes to seriousness, then he calls his mercenary captain, Bardic, to give him some quick instructions. Inside the maze, commanders issue orders to soldiers to wait a bit, drink water, then return to positions without lowering defenses. Marion flies in awe around the internal waterfalls, describing the place as stunning and full of water energy, while Eugene watches the place silently. Eugene analyzed the surrounding environment, noting it is clearly an artificially made space unlike natural dungeons, making survival possible therein with few monsters present. Eugene thinks about the possibility of the worst happening, deducing that one could indeed hide and survive for a long time in a maze like this. Lugats turns to Eugene, commenting smartly that this place seems perfect for evil things to lurk and thrive, asking him his opinion. Lugats ignores his response and praises Eugene's skills, noting not a single person died on their way here. So Eugene asks him directly about the remaining distance to where Galfredic was lost. Lugats smiles suspiciously, asking Eugene not to be impatient, reminding him he said he trusts Galfredic, while Eugene and Miriam shoot him sharp looks. Lugats adds with overconfidence that the person Eugene should trust now is him himself, claiming the Evergrow family has already uncovered every trap in this maze. Eugene smiles with clear sarcasm, commenting that despite this claim, people seem to die every time, and Lugats chuckles faintly and wickedly. His eyes shine with a demonic look as he finishes his sentence, describing those deaths as a sacrifice offered in hopes of passing safely. Eugene's eyes glow crimson red, staring at Jiffy and Lugats, and suddenly he senses something strange. The earth shakes powerfully and violently, and stones fall from the ceiling while soldiers wonder in terror if this is an earthquake. Lugats screams at everyone to brace themselves, announcing the maze structure has begun to move and change. Lugats points quickly to a huge wall moving with complex mechanisms, confirming to Eugene this is the intended place. Huge gears turn and walls shift, revealing a new path, while Lugats points out that this area where walls change every second is where the shortcut to the upper level lies. As rocks fall around them, Serenoa calls out to Eugene in amazement at this sudden earthquake opening the way before them. Eugene asks Lugats while looking at him about where this shortcut is supposed to be. Lugats smiles an evil smile, pointing out that the path lies exactly where Eugene is standing now. Suddenly, mechanical gears turn, and the ground splits beneath Eugene's feet. Eugene realizes the earthquake wasn't natural, but a staged trap in which Lugats caught Knight Galfredic previously and framed him. While wondering about Lugats' goal, the witch, Serenoa, screams in panic, then points with a trembling hand towards something ahead. Eugene's eyes widen in shock and rage when he sees his friend Galfredic bound with ropes and covered in blood on a stone platform resembling a cross. Eugene rushes towards him with lightning speed to save him. Eugene checks his friend to find he is still alive, thinking he must get him out and treat him immediately before it's too late. The fairy Marion warns her master with an anxious voice, noting there is something unnatural in the place. She confirms she felt a strange and different energy emitting from the abyssal depths. A strong sudden wind blows, so Serenoa wonders about its source. Suddenly, two glowing eyes shine in the pitch darkness. A huge monster appears surrounded by a terrifying purple aura, its steps shaking the place. Serenoa is terrified, realizing it's a minotaur, asking in bewilderment how such a monster is here, while Eugene orders her firmly to protect Galfredic, and Eugene rushes towards the monster. Eugene uses flying rocks to reach the huge monster's head. But when Eugene aims his strike, the monster uses a thunderous attack, launching Eugene away. Eugene flies through the air, affected by the blow's power, and falls violently in pain. The Minotaur stands tall, its weapon radiating dark energy, ready to destroy them. Eugene clings to the wall, watching the monster's movements cautiously. The Minotaur aims a crushing blow towards where the bound Galfredic is. Eugene rushes madly to save his friend before the attack crushes him. He reaches out, screaming Galfredic's name in a desperate attempt to reach him. Suddenly, a magic barrier appears, cutting off his path, which enrages Eugene, who wonders about this madness. Serenoa stands behind the barrier, screaming that this is a very high-rank minotaur even among advanced monsters. She asserts with a desperate scream that even a vampire will die if he faces it this way. Eugene points his sword at Serenoa's neck, his eyes glowing with extreme anger. He tells her sharply that she has completely crossed the line with this interference. Serenoa apologizes while trembling, but insists on her stance that she won't stand idly by watching a vampire run towards his doom, confirming that attacking such a monster blindly means zero chance of victory. Serenoa advises Eugene to assess the situation calmly and rationally right now if he truly wishes to save Sir Galfredic. She questions with shock and disbelief the presence of a minotaur in this place, pointing out that the maze shouldn't be massive enough for one, as she believed the worst they might face was a cyclops. Eugene glares around, his features filled with anger and tension amidst the electrically charged atmosphere. Lugats suddenly intervenes with a sarcastic comment, feigning surprise at the witch's ability to use earth magic. He continues his provocative speech directed at Eugene, calling him an eccentric who only knows how to create chimeras and mockingly pointing out that he barely survived before thanks to Sir Galfridic. Eugene shoots him a sharp look filled with menace, whispering his name with suppressed rage. Lou Gatz reveals his malicious intentions, claiming that Eugene didn't actually want to save his friend, hinting that events moved too quickly last time, all while his followers surround him. Eugene realized the shocking truth, confirming that Lou Gatz is the bastard responsible for Goffer Dick's deterioration and his current miserable state. Lou Gatz admits with cold provocation that he arranged this meeting specifically because he felt Eugene missed his close friends so much. Lou Gatz lays a hand on Eugene, calling him incredibly rude unlike what he had heard, but Eugene catches him off guard, gripping his hand with sudden force and ripping the glove off. Serenoa notices the strange energy, and Eugene immediately realizes that the monstrous strength Lou Gatz displayed does not belong to him. Serenoa warns Eugene loudly that the mark on Lou Gatz's hand is magic that allows for the transfer of power. Serenoa explains that this magic was originally used to transfer power between humans, but became completely forbidden after people began transferring powers from non-human entities. Lou Gatz mocks the term forbidden magic, considering it merely a cowardly play on words invented by those who wish to hoard power for themselves. He arrogantly declares that they are the chosen ones who will survive when despair befalls the world. Eugene understands the matter clearly, deducing that Lou Gatz borrowed someone else's power to defeat Galfridic, then boasted about it before him as if it were his own skill. Eugene's eyes gleam with rage, vowing to teach Lou Gatz his true place and standing. Eugene rushes in with a lightning-fast attack, and the forces collide, causing a thunderous explosion of energy. Serenoa is terrified by the immense power being emitted, wondering in astonishment if an ordinary vampire could release this kind of energy. Lou Gatz smiles with savage confidence, announcing that hiding his power wasn't a bad move while delivering a powerful blow. Eugene takes the hit in utter shock, unable to believe what is happening to him. Lou Gatz triggers one of the traps, confirming that he has no intention of holding back his power or retreating in this battle. Serenoa screams in panic as the floor collapses around them. Lou Gatz shouts as the place crumbles, pointing out that he already told them all the traps in this maze are known to him. Lou Gatz smiles maliciously as he looks down at Eugene amidst the destruction, ordering him to fall quietly. Eugene screams Serenoa's name, so she creates a barrier which he uses to jump off. Eugene ascends with supernatural speed to reach Lou Gatz. Eugene appears directly in front of Lou Gatz's face, breaking through the wall closing in front of him, which strikes terror into the latter. Eugene points his sword at Lou Gatz's face, who utters his name in total stunned silence. Lou Gatz admits deep down that the rumors about Eugene's strength were true and that the power he just witnessed far exceeds his expectations. He acknowledges that had he chosen a direct confrontation, victory would not have been guaranteed by any means, confirming that using Galfridic as bait without killing him was the optimal strategic choice. A demonic smile appears on Lou Gatz's face as he announces that the final sacrifice will finally be offered to complete the ritual. While the witch Serenoa uses magic barriers to slow their fall, she turns in astonishment to find Eugene running in the opposite direction, asking him with a trembling voice where he is going. Serenoa screams from the pain and psychological pressure she is enduring in this catastrophic situation. Serenoa blames herself severely, thinking she should have pretended not to know and fled to save her life, but her guilt drove her to intervene, and now she is stuck in this chaotic mess. She lifts her head to find Eugene standing before her, holding the unconscious body of Galfridic in his arms. Eugene asks her with a sharp, direct gaze if she is capable of saving this man, so Serenoa answers nervously that her specialty is not healing magic. Eugene stares at her with eyes cold as death, sternly telling her that this is not an acceptable answer to his question. Serenoa feels terrified by his gaze, sighs helplessly, and agrees to try despite it not being her specialty, while standing in a pool of red liquid. Meanwhile, the fairy, Miriam, calls out to her master anxiously, telling him she inspected the place, and there is absolutely no exit. Eugene also notices the lack of breakable walls, deducing that this place is the end of the maze, a completely isolated boss room. Miriam interrupts to tell him there is something more important she wants to say. Miriam points to the red liquid surrounding them, explaining that she initially thought she could do something due to the presence of water energy, but she is unable to control this liquid because it is not ordinary water, but a pool of blood of a different nature. Eugene looks at the stone cubes bearing eye engravings, realizing this is what Serenoa saw earlier deep underground. Miriam explains the terrifying reason for her inability. She can only control the blood of the dead, and since she cannot control this blood, it means the owner of this blood is still alive. Suddenly, a massive and terrifying entity emerges from the blood. Serenoa screams in terror as she tries to heal Galfredic while Eugene watches the entity before him. Eugene orders Miriam to quickly search for any opening to escape, and she responds immediately. The giant monster resembling a demon with huge horns stands tall before Eugene. Eugene realizes that Galfredic is still in critical condition and cannot move, so he decides to confront it. Eugene's sword gleams with energy as he decides his first move must be to paralyze this monster. The monster unleashes a barrage of sharp, fast blood attacks towards Eugene. Eugene moves with lightning speed, dodging them skillfully. Eugene continues to evade the successive attacks with superior skill, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. In a decisive moment, Eugene delivers a powerful blow with his sword, but it collides with something extremely hard. Eugene makes a sound of annoyance when he realizes his attack didn't penetrate the opponent's defense as expected. The monster opens its mouth to fire a devastating energy beam, forcing Eugene to maneuver quickly to avoid being hit. Eugene lands on the ground flexibly, his eyes fixed on his opponent's attacks, realizing the battle will not be easy. Eugene manages to dodge those strikes with acrobatic movements. Eugene lands gracefully on one of the stone pillars, narrowly avoiding the monster's attacks. Eugene looks at his blade seriously, realizing that an ordinary sword isn't enough to cause even a simple scratch on this entity's body. Eugene decides there is no choice but to use his own power for the time being, coating his sword in a bloody red aura, forming a new lethal blade. Eugene rushes from his spot with lightning speed, soaring through the air to execute his attack. He brings his massive bloody sword down with tremendous force upon his opponent, creating a longitudinal gash in the monster's body. But Eugene grinds his teeth in anger when he realizes the wound he inflicted was extremely superficial and didn't affect the monster deeply. The monster seizes the opportunity and counters with a crushing attack that sends Eugene flying, causing him to cough up blood from the severity of the impact. Then he falls to the ground with force. In the meantime, Serenoa continues treating Galfredic with strenuous effort, begging him to wake up because his close friend is facing mortal danger. Eugene realized with sorrow that Serenoa's previous words were correct, and that this advanced monster lies on a completely different level of power. The demonic monster stands tall amidst the flames, while Eugene looks small before it as he tries to gather his strength. Eugene raises his eyes to see another attack coming towards Serenoa and his friend, cursing the situation and the difficulty of countering it. The monster crushes Eugene with a thunderous blow, driving Serenoa to scream his name in sheer terror. Eugene gasps heavily with blood covering his face, sensing helplessness, a very familiar feeling he lived with for decades in his previous life. The monster's gaze and sharp claws turn toward Eugene, who wonders bitterly about the reason for what is happening. Eugene asks himself, as the attacks pierce his body, why he feels this pain is more severe than it was in the past. Eugene falls as one of the attacks pierces his body, his gaze falling downward as he repeats his question, why? Suddenly, while Serenoa continues treating the body lying in the pool of blood, Galfredic's fingers begin to move, and Galfredic suddenly opens his eyes wide. His blue pupil gleams as he wonders in shock at what is happening before him.